think we'll be done by 4:30. I might have to step out in this case.
Good afternoon, and welcome to Polk County School Board's work session. We will now call the work session for February 27th, 2024 to order. I would like to thank everyone for being here today, especially our staff. I see them back there. They're available and accessible to help and address any questions we have. We are humbled to serve alongside of you, and I would say the most highly educated workforce in Polk County. And I would like to just start by reading our Who Are We statement. We are the Polk County Leadership Governance Team. If we were to pick one word that describes us, or one phrase, it would be student-centered. Because when we come together to work, we lean on our diverse backgrounds and experiences to ensure that our decisions are focused on providing a high-quality education for all students. The four most important things to our governance team would include: 1, operating with integrity; 2, respecting our students, our staff, families, and each other; 3, establishing a culture where stakeholders feel valued, supported, and have opportunities for personal and professional growth; 4, supporting an approach of continuous improvement to ensure student outcomes. Collectively, we need to work on behalf of the children we serve and find avenues of agreement so that we can govern the district in an effective manner. There is no acceptable alternative. We will always collaborate in a respectful manner in order to enhance opportunities for each student and staff members. We will not disparage each other. Our students will thrive because we will remain committed to supporting the whole child. We hope to engage and empower our students and our stakeholders to create a community of lifelong learners. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Superintendent Hyde to lead us in our work session today.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board, members of community and staff. Again, thank you for being here today. We start off, as we do each of our workshops, with an opportunity to recognize and celebrate some of our community-based partners who contribute to the overall success of Polk County Public Schools and our community at large. At this time, it's my absolute pleasure to introduce Paula Creamer, Director of Philanthropy from Good Shepherd Hospice, the Bethany Centers. They partner with Polk County Public Schools. We had a great opportunity a little over a week ago to tour their facility. I will tell you, do not watch the intro video unless you brought a handful of tissues. And I say that with an acknowledgement that what our students and children in Polk County Public Schools go through in dealing with grief for loss of a loved one is quite considerable. And we are very grateful to have a partner like this in our community. And we discussed at length several new opportunities to not only provide expanded services for our children, but also for our staff, and making sure that our guidance counselors and others have the toolkits that they need in order to support our students. And you'll see some examples here this morning. So I don't want to steal too much of their thunder. So good morning. Welcome. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you so much. Again, as Superintendent Hyde said, my name is Paula Creamer. I do the fundraising for Good Shepherd Hospice, and bereavement is one of those programs that I fundraise for. So this is Susie Soliday. Susie is our bereavement supervisor. So she's actually going to be the one that's going to make the presentation because she's the expert, not me. So, but we do have a little tiny slide presentation, and there is a video if we have time to make sure that you can see that. And he's right, it's a sad one, but it is very moving. So Susie, your turn.
All right, thank you so much. It is such an honor to be here. I'm a former guidance counselor of Polk County Schools, and it was my joy to do that job for many years. And so Paul and I just wanted to tell you a little bit about one of the programs that we are offering, and some of you might be already familiar with this. And what they are is putting grief material in the hands of professionals who can use those to help your students. So what we have right here on the table is one of our professional toolkits. This is available. Paul is going to be Vanna today. And so these are available to your school social workers, mental health facilitators, school counselors. And what they are is a whole lot of wonderful materials, books, manipulatives, puppets, games, tissues, Uno, all kinds of good things that a professional can use if they have encountered a grieving child in their work. And I was thinking back on my way here, I would have loved to have had something like this when I was a guidance counselor. It's wonderful tools, different ages that you can use them with, and we're just very thrilled to be able to provide these. So far, we've given out, I believe, over 300 of them, and our goal by the end of this school year is to get them in the hands of all those professionals that need them. And we also have what we call comfort bags, and Paula has those as well. And we have 3 different ones, and they're all age appropriate. So our green one is for our littles, our elementary school children. The orange one is for our middles, our middle school. And then our blue ones are for our bigs, or our high school kids. And what they are is some basic bags with again, some age-appropriate fidget toys, books, handouts. Each one has a little a picture frame for their loved one, Kleenex, again, bubbles for the little ones, a little, yes, thank you, that's what this one is comfort stretches. So to help them, if they're tense and they're crying and so forth, to stretch and to do some physical things that can help. And each one also has a little, I talk with my hands, obviously, you'd have to cut them off if I couldn't speak, a little booklet that's age appropriate for ways to cope for each age group. And our goal is to get these into the hands of grieving kids in the schools. And in both of these, the professional and the comfort kits, we do have information on how to get a hold of us and what services we provide. And many of you have heard of Good Shepherd Hospice, and you know that we're an organization that helps people who are terminally ill. And of course, we do bereavement services for anyone who's been who's interested in services after their loved one has died in our care. But what you may not know is that we provide those services to anyone in the community. You, your neighbors, someone who's had a loss of a loved one, including our students in Polk County Schools. And so we are here to help. And all of our services, because we are United Way funded and we get other funding, all of our bereavement services are free to anyone in the community, whatever they need. And it's a companioning model, so we're just walking alongside you, trying to help you make sense of things. I'm looking at my time because I want you to be able to see our Camp Braveheart video. That's another thing. That's what Superintendent Hyde was saying. It's our weekend bereavement camp that we do. It's almost here. We still have openings. So if you know of any students who may be appropriate to come to camp, please let us know. We can get them an application in their hands. And so
Who's got control of the?
whoever can get that video started, possibly. Miss Fields sending out some Kleenex with us.
Where's it? Is it this? Oh, there we go. Wrong way. Thank you, Paul. Well, hang on a second. Keep going. Which way? You're the professional. Sorry. Keep going. It's towards the end.
Just keep going.
Right there.
And you'll see some of your colleagues here. Taylor Sisson, one of your social workers, Kylia Carswell is in this video, and Aaron Pike, and they're all school board employees that help us at camp.
I'm here because my dad died in November. He had cancer in his leg, and then 10 years later, it worked its way up into his lungs. I'm at Camp Braveheart because my great-grandma Reeves and my great-grandma Hank passed away.
Because I lost my mom.
I lost my dad. He had a heart condition when he was little, and then that just took over when he was driving and just swerved into a ditch. He would walk up to some random place and make friends with a stranger in like the first 5 seconds of him meeting them.
What would you say to your dad if he was here with you?
Oh, probably that I love him. I'd probably tell her that I loved her, and I would make sure that I got as much time as I could with her. I would tell them that I'm trying my best to take care of Mom.
Camp Braveheart gives kids from all backgrounds an opportunity to come together and share one common experience that they have. I mean, they're all struggling with how to start or move through the grieving process. And once they realize they're all facing the same experience, it's amazing watching them open up and share that experience and start to begin that healing process.
So before I came here, I was like, no, I don't need to go, I'm fine. But then literally the first day that we got here, I was like, no, I'm not.
Each camper is an individual, and so they experience their grief completely different. We have some that sob through the weekend. We have some that never show that emotion that you would expect. So it is a very important point for us to meet the child where they are when they come to camp and then get them through the journey.
I think this experience really just lets each child know, first of all, that they are not alone. And the camp allows them to be amongst other kids of varying ages that have gone through the loss of somebody special in their life.
These families are already dealing with a tough loss. And so when you add on another financial impact, you'll miss out on so many kids who would benefit from a program like this. So I love that it's free to them and they get all these experiences. Some have never ridden a horse. Some have never been on a campground before. So they're getting to work through their grief, but also have fun doing it.
I think it's better for me to understand that it's okay for me to feel how I feel and that there's different ways to grieve and that everyone's here for really the same reason, so it's kind of nice to talk to the people that have the same experiences here.
This camp is so special, and to see the transformations of these kids, especially when they go through the memorial service, to see them come in just kind of, they don't know, and to have that healing experience that memorial service can provide for them. Kids, I'm not gonna cry I'm crying, but they're crying because they feel comfortable enough to let their feelings come out.
I just wish that people could see the transformation that the kids go through. It's an absolutely amazing program. It's well worth investing time and funding into.
Even if you don't think that you have to go here, it's probably a good idea to go anyway, because it does help.
One of the doctors there, she was like, hey, I think this is good for you. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'm open for anything. And so far, the experience has been so great.
Camp Braveheart is held each spring for up to 125 children and teens who have lost a loved one. We provide each camper with a safe place to gather and participate in some really fun activities like wall climbing, horseback riding, water activities, and more. During camp, each child learns they are not alone in their grief journey. Those feelings of anger, sadness, fear, and guilt are all welcomed, and we help support their grieving process. Camp Braveheart is 100% free of charge to each camper and is supported by generous donations. If you would like to be more involved in the Bethany Center for Grieving Children and Camp Braveheart, we would welcome your call.
Wrong way.
And I know our time is up already, but if anyone is interested in camp, one of the things that Paul offers is a VIP tour. Camp is April 5th, 6th, and 7th this year. It's at the Circle F Dude Ranch outside of Lake Wales. And we would love any of you to come and take a tour of camp. And it's really our favorite thing that we do every year. It means so much to us, and your support means so much to us as well. So does anyone have any questions very quickly before we get done?
Yeah, they'll be up here. We don't call from the audience.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. And there are some board members who are, but I wanted to speak a little bit more about our opportunity to come visit and offer that same option, an opportunity to our board members to come visit, especially the Lakeland facility. For the board members, they have several multi-sensory rooms, some that are very, quite honestly, tech forward, but they have an anger room, a stress room. They have a room that's enclosed in glass, and individuals can write their messages to their loved ones on there. As tempting as it is sometimes to take a picture of those things and say, hey, this is what's going on, it's a very personal thing, but very touching. It's really impressive. And part of what I think at times gets missed, and we have talked about student loss a lot this school year, as you know. And there's a lot of questions that come, and really the service that they provide that we can refer to, or our staff can refer to, or families can reach out directly to, benefits us because, as you know, following a tragedy on a campus involving a staff member or a student, we always send a crisis team there. But what happens when students don't show up initially? We send letters home to families and say, here are the signs that you should look for. That may mean that your child should be talking to someone, but again, who then provides that level of service and support? And it may not be necessarily be something they're comfortable coming back to a school counselor for. It may be something they want to go to a private facility for. Their entrance is on the back, so it's not on a main street, so there's a lot of privacy, there's a lot of confidentiality. They stagger how they bring people in and out of the facility. But I'll tell you, it's just one of those things that when you visit and you watch the video, sometimes you don't realize, because we operate within a very specific sphere of influence that we have, and we don't realize the extent to which some of our community members and students and children, more importantly, are touched by this issue or affected by this issue. So to have a partner like you, I just wanted to commend you again and say thank you. And I look forward to expanding our partnership, as we discussed, with guidance counselor training and other things to make sure we get as many of these toolkits out into our schools as possible. So, and there are several board members signed up, so Ms. Miller.
Thank you. My question was about expanding our reach to help support it. I'm very familiar with your program through our Kiwanis. Lakeland Kiwanis is a big supporter, and we've raised money for this, and the sensory rooms are so useful, not only for students to touch and feel, but just to have that emotion piece. So I appreciate what you do. And my question, the superintendent can update us on how we can do more of connecting you to those students with those needs, because I feel like there's so many who still need to learn. You're way up on the north side with me, but there's so many across the county that need to learn about your services. Is there a waiting list for that camp?
Not at the moment.
Okay, good. Okay.
We still have room, and so we welcome more applications.
Thank you.
And since Ms. Miller asked, as we discussed, they'll be coming to attend both school counselor and psychologist meetings, which are held regularly now through Ms. Ann Everett's office, and they're getting invitations for our deans, our assistant principal, and our principals meetings as well, so that they can provide this information to them, and then our building leaders can help ensure that we're helping to create those connections, or at least providing the opportunity, right? We can't direct a parent which services they select from, or they ultimately select, but we can tell them, here are the options that we have for you. But it's an imperative for us to keep training staff, because they don't just hand out the kits. There's a training aspect to it, so we're looking for an opportunity. How do we bring those staff in who haven't been trained so that they can make sure they have the kits? Because the kit doesn't remain at a school. Once it's assigned to to one of our employees, if that employee transitions to another campus, those kids go with them. So I want to make sure that we don't leave any gaps on our campuses. And everything's done, just before anybody jumps to conclusions, everything's done with parental consent. There is nothing about this that is not discussed prior to their involvement. Obviously, a parent has to contract with them directly or partner with them directly, but as far as our ability to use these tools, we communicate that with families in advance as well. So just wanted to make sure I clarified that for anyone else. Mr. Sharpless.
First, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for what you guys do. You know, personally, you know, my best friend passed away from COVID in 2021, and I'm dealing, you know, my godchildren are highly affected by that, and that's something that, you know, I wish I would have known about this Camp Braveheart. I think it's something that could have potentially helped them and may still, who knows. But and having said that, I was just curious, is this all your services, but specifically Camp Braveheart, but all the services, are they open to any child? Do they have to be a Polk County Public Schools student, or how does that work?
It's a good question. It's any child in Polk County.
Okay.
Ages 5 through high school.
All right.
Be eligible. And our Good Shepherd Hospice Services and Camp Braveheart actually serve Polk, Highlands, and Hardy counties.
Okay. And then my second question is, we didn't really get to go over your phase 2 and phase 3, and I was wondering if you can give me just a brief, like, what that's going to look like.
Right. Well, phase 1 is what we are kind of in the process of doing, obviously. Phase 2 is to get those into the hands of our first responders, funeral homes, and so forth. And then I believe phase 3 is expanding to Highlands and Hardy counties. Am I correct? I'm correct. I'm correct. I'm like, oh my gosh, what's 2 and 3? Yeah, but yeah, that's what we're doing. So that's our goal. And, you know, to also just let families know that we're here just companioning them. That's our philosophy. We're just walking alongside them. Whether the loss was last month or 2 years ago, we realize kids are going to be affected, you know, long-term from this. And so,
And again, just thank you for what you do.
thank you. We appreciate it.
Ms. Fields?
Well, thank you for being here today and informing us. And Superintendent Hyde, thank you for bringing this before us, because I've never heard of the camp before.
Really? Okay.
I've heard a lot of things about the Bethany Center. Mr. Philip Walker, former commissioner, is one of your strongest advocates for your agency. So my question is, if someone is interested, they basically just need to either go to the website or make a call?
Yes, they can call our Bethany Center, and I'll make sure that that number is provided for you all. And we have ongoing services besides camp, of course, like we said. We have a family group every month at all of our centers. We have a center in Lakeland that they have been able to see, and then also one in Auburndale and Sebring.
And you might have answered this already, and maybe I just missed it. How many days is camp?
Camp is a 3-day, Friday afternoon to a Sunday afternoon.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Wyatt?
Thank you. And I was fairly familiar with camp because one of my closest friends has volunteered for years and years and years. She actually moved away to Memphis, and still that is the one trip she makes back consistently to Florida every year, is to make sure she's here to volunteer for camp. But I know that you do always need volunteers for camp. We have several, mental health counselors and those types of positions on our staff. If someone is interested in volunteering to help with camp, would they just reach out to you? How can we help promote that?
Yeah, thank you. And we do have so many people in the school system. That's how I learned about camp, was I was at a school and they sent a flyer. Back in the day, it was just a flyer that got sent. And so, yes, we are open to, we have many people from the school board who come and volunteer. And it's a fun weekend for them. It's a meaningful weekend for them. And we always say, if we can get somebody to come once, then maybe they'll get bitten by the camp bug and come again. That's our goal. And so I can provide that number for our grief center for any, and I can provide that to Jeanette to distribute out. And that would be the best way to get a hold of us.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are no further questions or comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you all.
Mr. Chair, board members, the next item before us is another community partnership with the Flight to Honor. We have with us today Mr. Michael Huff, the team leader, and Mr. James Jordan. I want to make sure this is correct. It says bus captain, but I have a feeling that means something different than we would assume it means. So welcome. Thank you for being here.
Well, that's going to be a very hard presentation to follow. My name is Michael Huff. I'm a local general contractor, and I've been involved with Flight to Honor for 7 years. This year will be my 5th mission. I've had 2 as a guardian, 2 as a bus captain, and this year I'm going as the mission commander. And Mr. James Jordan here works for Publix. He's been on 3 missions, 1 as a guardian, 2 as a bus captain, and he's going with me again this year as one of my bus captains. So the Flight to Honor program is a community-driven initiative aimed at honoring our veterans by providing them with an opportunity to visit the memorials dedicated to their service. Engaging students to actively participate in this meaningful initiative is essential to the success of the mission.
So, let me ask you a question. How many have heard of Honor Flight? Everybody, right. We are not Honor Flight. We are Flight to Honor. And before I talk about what our mission is, I want to go into how we came about. So about 2015, Gary Clark, who's the president of the Polk County Veterans Council, tried to become an Honor Flight chapter. They said no. They said we were too close to Sanford, we were too close to St. Pete, and that our veterans would have to travel to those locations in order to experience this event. So Gary said, we have enough in Polk County, we'll start our own. And he did. So we're on Mission 9 coming up. And what we do is take these veterans up to the memorials that are erected in their honor, that honor their sacrifice and commitment. We make sure they get there safely. We make sure they, that we get community involvement. We have guardians. Every veteran has a guardian. And when we go around these events, it's very emotional. You know, we have World War II. We had Herman Jenkins last time. You know, he's since passed away. Rest in peace. But we've had Korean War, Vietnam, and what we do is we take the ones that have health issues first, and then we go in the age group. So let me go to the orientation. The Tuesday before our flight this year is on April 30th. The Tuesday before that is a Sunday. I'm sorry. The Sunday before the flight. We have an orientation where all the veterans, all the guardians come, and they get to meet each other. And in order to pull that off, we need help from students. Usually it's scout troops, JROTC, or local students. This year, Southwest Middle School has stepped up and provided 20 students from their Future Business Leaders of America Club to come and help us with not only the orientation, but the welcome home ceremony. Michael talked about the welcome home a little bit later. And without these students, you know, we might not have enough volunteers. So these students come and they learn, you know, the history. They get to walk the veterans to the tables. They help with the parking. It's really an amazing event for them.
All right, so the morning starts very early. We mobilize at Lake Linder Airport about 4:30. Some of us get there at 03:30 to get set up for breakfast and sign in, and there's always veterans sitting there at 03:30 waiting for us. And the picture here is my first vet, Arthur Miller. And I show him because once you are a guardian to a vet, you're kind of attached to him forever. You stay in touch with them. And Mr. Miller here is going to have his 100th birthday party on March 24th. So we mobilize, we get on the plane, we fly to DC, and the first thing that we do is we go visit the World War II Memorial. That's where we get the group picture, and then the veterans are allowed to either get back on the bus or walk down to where the Vietnam Memorial is at and the Korean Memorial. Now I'm going to tell you most of our vets nowadays are Vietnam vets. You might have one World War II vet this year, maybe a couple of Korean vets, and most of them are Vietnam vets. So they get down, the first thing is they don't want to go. Getting the Vietnam vets to go, it's like, I've been there, done that, it wasn't any fun the first time. But when they go, and they get down to the wall, and they get to talking with the other vets, and they share an experience. And they identify their friends that they lost on the wall, and there's tears, and they support each other. It's a very emotional event. And these missions, they offer educational opportunities for teachers and for students. They foster a deeper understanding of history, patriotism, and service. And we like to sponsor students and teachers to go on these trips. The only holdback on that is the student has to be at least 18 to go. But we've had Auburndale Rotary Club sponsors student guardians for a number of our trips. Lincoln Academy sponsors teachers. And we have a number of veteran organizations that will sponsor JROTC students. So as long as they're 18 or over, we do our best to try and get the younger kids in so that they can become familiar with what we're doing. One of the things that happens at these memorials is there's a lot of students there from other schools that come in, and they come prepared. Here's another picture of Mr. Miller and some students. They come up, they had cards, they surround him, they ask them questions, and the veterans love this. Then we load them back on a bus, we give them a box lunch, and we head to Arlington National Cemetery where they get to watch the changing of the guard.
So the mail call. Before we get into that, I want to tell a quick story about a veteran that I had on my bus. His name was Francesco Saez. He's a Vietnam veteran. He was at the wall, and he was just kind of standing there deep in thought, and he was getting pretty emotional. Well, his guardian was a younger kid, probably 19 maybe, and he didn't really know what to do. So I walked up to him, I tapped the guardian on the shoulder, I said, "Hey, it'll be all right, just stay with him." I walked up and stood behind Francesco, and I said, "How many you got on here?" And he said, 23. So I put my hand on his shoulder, stood there with him for a minute, and I told the guardian, "They'll be fine, stay with him." So we get back for the welcome home, and I'm at the bottom greeting the veterans as they come off. And I shake his hand, and he looks at me and he says, "This is the best day of my life." I said, "Well, it's not over yet. All these people are here for you." I gestured to the sea of people. We probably had 2,000 people there. And he said, "Boy, we sure didn't get that back when we came back in '68, And so that's the stuff that makes this so special. These guys have had a bad taste in their mouth their whole lives, but this event kind of takes that out. So the mail call. The mail call they don't know about. When you're deployed, everybody loves getting mail from home. On the way back, we have a mail call. And every single veteran on that flight gets letters from their home, their families, but thanks to Jeanette Crowley, we started getting cards written by students from Polk County. So, back before 4 years ago, we would just contact the schools individually. But she took over and spearheaded the whole thing, so now she goes to every school and gets all these letters that we put in this mail call. And it's very emotional, and it's usually the highlight of the trip, And so that's how the students help us out with this trip, all the Polk County students that may not even get there.
So, the importance of the student involvement is mail call would not have the same impact if it wasn't for the students. It also helps students develop meaningful connections with the veterans and the broader community. So the welcome home. So when I had my second veteran as a guardian, he was a Vietnam vet, a Marine, big guy. And we had a great time when we were walking through D.C. And we got back to the airport, and the fire department's there with their water cannons, and the plane goes under it. And then he steps off the plane, and there's 2,000-3,000 people. And he just stopped. And he looks around, and it took him a minute or so, but then we went on through, and he shakes everybody's hands, all the politicians and all the students and people that are there. And we got to the terminal. I went to shake his hand, and he grabbed me and put me in a big bear hug. And he says, "Mike, I bet you've never seen a Marine cry." And he said, "I've never been welcomed home." And we could tell you story after story from the veterans or from their family members where this welcome home event has changed their life. It's knocked the chip off their shoulder they've had for years. It's a huge deal, and it's also very emotional. So how do students get involved with this? Well, we have individual students that come out. We've had school cheerleaders, JROTC groups, and the kids get together and they make signs, as you can see from here. They make signs. The Boy Scouts are there, and they always come out and shake the hands of the veterans. So it makes a huge difference for the students to be involved in what we're doing.
So real quick, benefits of student engagement. One, they get to talk to these people, these veterans who have participated in the events that they've learned about in school. You know, World War II, Vietnam, Korea. It inspires personal growth in them to aspire to leadership. It lets them get inspired to do civic engagement. Maybe they want to make a military career, you know. And so all these things, it enhances their recognition of the sacrifices that the veterans have made on their behalf.
So I'd like to thank you guys for allowing us to come talk to you and for recognizing the importance of engaging students and honoring veterans through the Flight to Honor. And I think together we can inspire a new generation of civic-minded leaders dedicated to serving our community and honoring those who served. This flight, it costs about $120,000 to do it. We get no government money, no grants. It's all earned by fundraisers, individuals, local businesses, and local civic clubs. So,
And veterans don't pay anything.
Veterans pay nothing for the trip, and it's all run by volunteers. So if we have any questions.
Yes, sir. Ms. Miller.
Thank you. It's good to see both of you today. I do have a question. I'm glad you mentioned support. I have a family member who I encouraged to do this, but he cannot. He said he's been there and he can't get close. So the fact that you have people there, are they do you have others there? If I can convince him to go, I think he would enjoy it, like you mentioned. But the support for the ones that still struggle.
On the trip?
Yes.
Yeah, we take certain people with us, such as we've got law enforcement. We have EMS with us. As far as support, it's each other. They get to talking and you know, who can better help a veteran than someone that's been there where he's at. And we get that. We have to convince some people to go, but nobody has ever gone that hasn't enjoyed the experience.
And I love the student involvement. Is that done individually at the schools, or does Jeanette coordinate that, or do they reach out to your organization independently? How do we get the students that are interested to get more involved?
So other than the cards, Jeanette handles getting the cards and letters from the schools. It's people that, like my kids, my grandkids go to school, so I'll get their classes involved. It's just people we know that, like Southwest Middle School, our Rotary Club is doing a lot of sponsorship there. So we've let them know, and they want to get involved. So it's not a district-wide thing that we've tried to do, but we would certainly love that help.
Okay, thank you. District 7, I'm sure you mentioned Auburndale Rotary, but the high school and some of those schools, I'm sure, would be super interested in it. Thank you for
The
sharing.
ROTCs are very involved.
Ms. Fields.
Thank you. Again, Superintendent Hyde, thank you for enlightening us. I've heard about your group, and I've read things in the paper, but I've never been invited. So now that I know that I'm invited, we would love to be able to come and to be a part of the group that's going to welcome the men and women back. Mr. Herman Jenkins was actually recognized by us, maybe 6 months ago? He passed away, as you said, but he was recognized. We named our Rochelle School of the Arts fabrication lab in his honor. So that was a good thing that you mentioned his name. So thank you again for your service.
You bet. And Wendy will be passing out the slideshow, and also we have these little dog tags.
Already did.
Good deal. So, and yes, everybody's invited.
Dr. Allen.
Yeah, so I just want to say thank you all for being here. Ms. Crowley, thank you for initiating and bringing some synergy around that. A lot of the stories that you're sharing today, I grew up in my household hearing those as well, and the frustrations of my uncles and what they experienced. So I appreciate that. Even got a picture from my uncle today from my mom, who's got his Vietnam hat on, as well as they were having lunch. So I know my parents are interested and have been interested in this program. So how do you get a veteran on this plane? So is it once a year?
It is once a year. It takes a lot to put these together, so it's once a year. And the Polk County Veterans Council, if you go to the website, there's a place for Flight to Honor, and there's an application for a guardian, and there's an application for a veteran. And like James said, veterans are picked by health and then by age. So we don't pick them until we're picking them this month. Unfortunately, some of them don't survive, or they have medical complications and are now not able to go. So that's how they're picked. Guardians, with few exceptions, are first come, first served. One of those exceptions is if spouses cannot be a guardian to a vet, but family members can. So if a vet wants a family member to go, a son, a grandson, a granddaughter, then they'll get moved to the top of the list. So, but those applications are on the Polk County Veterans Council website.
Awesome. Appreciate your work, and thanks for preserving these stories as well. Mm-hmm.
Mr. Sharpless?
Well, Superintendent, you're 2 for 2 today, making me cry during presentations.
That was our goal, by the way.
Guess I'm a big teddy bear. Anyhow, I want to say thank you for what you do. You know, I was looking at this, and now that we know, like Board Member Field said, now that we know that we're able to do this, something that's pretty important to take part of. And actually, it's interesting, April 30th is my birthday, and I couldn't think of a better thing to do for my birthday than go and help with the Welcome Home event. So I'm hoping to be able to attend that. Do you, and so here's my question. Where would be the best point of contact? Would that be Jeanette if we, because I'm in connection with a lot of student organizations through volunteering within the schools and then outside the schools. What would be the best point of contact to get the students to get involved in this?
So our volunteer person, and again, like I mentioned, everybody involved with this program is a volunteer, but our volunteer coordinator, Pat Gruber, who also works with hospice, her and Jeanette talk a lot, so probably Jeanette to Pat Gruber.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. And one other question I thought of: what about if could your organization come actually speak to some student groups? Okay.
We do that, yes.
To encourage participation.
Colonel Gary Clark does a lot of our presentations, and he couldn't be here today because he heads up the at the baseball part. They bring veterans out to throw the first pitch, and he spends a lot of his time this part of the year there. So
yeah, we'll go speak to anybody as long as we can spread the word. And one more thing, sorry, the Welcome Home, we've made it a family event. So we have food trucks, we have a magician and face painter and balloon animals, posters the kids can fill out. So really, it's anybody can come, and it's a great time.
Thank you.
There are no further questions or comments, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Next item before the board here in the workshop, we're going to invite Mr. Lance Lawson, principal at Bartow High School, down about a naming request. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm following a bereavement camp and supporting our military officials, so it's a lot of pressure, but we'll get it done. All right. So, esteemed members of the school board, Superintendent Hyde, I come before you today with a heartfelt request that resonates deeply within our community. It is a request born out of reverence for a man whose impact transcends generations and whose legacy embodies the very essence of Bartow High School, Ken Riley. Ken Riley, a name synonymous with excellence, integrity, and unwavering commitment, deserves to be forever immortalized within the halls of our beloved institution. From his prolific play at All Black Union Academy to his induction into the NFL Hall of Fame, renaming the field house after Ken Riley would signify significant progress within the Bartow community. As we gather here today, I urge you to consider renaming the football field house in honor of this legendary figure. By renaming the football field house after Ken Riley, we not only pay tribute to his remarkable achievements on the field, but we also reaffirm our commitment to honoring individuals who embody the values we hold dear: integrity, leadership, and a relentless pursuit of excellence. I implore you, esteemed members of the school board, to seize this opportunity to etch Ken Riley's name into the fabric of Bartow High School's history. Let us ensure that his legacy continues to inspire generations to come. Thank you for your consideration.
Ms. Fields.
Thank you for bringing this before us. I think what I would say to Superintendent Hyde is it's unfortunate that we don't have a school that we can name after Mr. Riley, because he made a tremendous difference in the Bartow community and the surrounding area. Maybe there's nothing at this point in time, but I wholeheartedly, sometimes, amen to that. I wholeheartedly support it, and I think it's very befitting that you come before us during Black History Month, because Mr. Riley definitely made a lot of history, and he was actively involved in the community until his death. So thank you for that, and you have my support 100%.
Thank you.
Ms. Wyatt.
I just want to echo some of Ms. Field's sentiments. So Mr. Riley was actually a dean at Winter Haven when I was in school there, so I know him very well. But he just the salt of the earth and a great leader and role model for all of our students. So thanks for bringing this forward.
There are no further questions or comments. Thank you, sir.
And I didn't make you cry, Mr. Shaw.
So Superintendent Hyde, would that come before us?
Go ahead, Ms. Fields.
Would that come before us pretty soon, or?
Yes, ma'am. I don't recall, I don't believe it's back-to-back this evening, but no, ma'am. That will
Okay.
come at the next meeting.
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Next item, we'll bring Ms. Candy Amato down. The next two items actually are within Ms. Amato's scope and sequence and supervision. So we have Polk Pre-Collegiate Academy Charter Contract Modification Request.
Okay, so now I have to follow all of that, and I bring this to you. So, good afternoon. This was brought to you back in January. Polk Pre-Collegiate is requesting an expansion to add grades 6 through 12. They currently serve grades 9 and 10. There were some concerns that were brought up during the January meeting. I do have a little bit of clarity. However, there are still some financial concerns. The new principal did provide a instructional kind of guide. So they do plan to hire 4 teachers, a math teacher who will serve middle grades math 6 through 8, plus electives. Science teacher will serve middle grade science 6 through 8 plus electives. Language arts will serve language arts, reading, and remedial reading and electives. And the social studies will teach history, civics, American history 6 through 8 and electives. They still obviously have their 3 staff members for high school as well. Over the next 2 years, they would like to expand to serve 215 students. Financially, they did provide us their January financials. They did end the month in the positive with a fund balance of $29,399, which is up from the $2,000 the previous month.
But that's also following what, Ms.
That was following a ESSER reimbursement of $37,500.
So as you know, they receive regular reoccurring reimbursements. In the absence of that reimbursement, they would not have a fund balance, a positive fund balance. Just to provide all clarification to the board, I do not support the request for an expansion. Additionally, I don't believe they have the financial wherewithal to hire 4 additional teachers under the assumption that they'll generate enough FTE, subsequent FTE, in order to offset those costs. So I do not think that this is something right now that is feasible for that organization. I believe they need to take some time and refocus their efforts on recruitment within the existing grade levels, and then create a demand to drive a request for future expansion. It's my opinion as superintendent, it's my recommendation to the board is that you deny this application when the time comes, when it comes before you formally, and I'll speak to that again at the next opportunity. But Ms. Miller.
Thank you, Ms. Amato. And we've talked about this, and I've talked to the superintendent. This originated, and I think the public, when they hear Polk Collegiate, it's hard to pre-collegiate. It's hard to determine which school they're talking about. This was originally part of BAMS, this school, years ago. So it was part of the Berkeley Middle School campus that shared a campus, and they took at 9th and 10th. They were teaching 9th and 10th grade.
Correct.
They moved themselves, or were asked, depends
Right.
who you talk to, off of the campus and wanted to continue pre-collegiate,
Correct.
which is not the other campuses. This is a separate school within itself. We've heard from a previous principal that wasn't there long, but she had presented to this board at one time. I have grave concerns about the finances of this school. I think we have to do the due diligence of not only tax dollars, but for our students. How many students are currently enrolled?
33 students. as of
33
yesterday.
students, okay, which is up from 16 or 20. But to add this many grades, assuming that they will have the staff and the students to fill the seats, at this time, I cannot be in support of this. I hope they can take this time to grow that, if they want to grow that 9th and 10th grade, so they're sustainable. To approve a school that hasn't shown to be sustainable, ESSER phones won't come next month or the following month, and what's going to happen to the finances? So those are my biggest concerns. And I know people have goodwill in a lot of this, but we have to look at the budgetary items as well as the students that would be affected if they started somewhere and then had to move again. Thank you.
Ms. Fields.
Superintendent Hyde, thank you again for your comments, because I wanted to get a sense of your opinion on the matter, which is very closely aligned with mine. I think that they need to really grow what they have, and then if it is in their favor, they can come back, I would imagine, at another given time. And then my other question, I think, has been answered. They only have like $29,000 to their name. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Ms. Wyatt.
Thank you. I share many of the sentiments with Superintendent Hyde and my colleagues, but this is technically still considered a high-performing charter school based on their status from when they were at BAMS. Is that correct?
That is correct.
When will that expire if they don't?
When they no longer meet the status as established by the state of Florida. So if they earn anything lower than a B, they will lose that status.
And we wouldn't know school grades until next
The
late
summer.
summer.
Mhm.
Okay. So I guess my question's probably more for Wes, is we know why high-performing charter school rules were enacted. This is not the case. Just in that, the fact that they're still carrying their high-performance charter when they are seemingly a startup, just because they've gone out on their own, they're have all their own resources. They've really separated from where that foundation was. Is there anything in law that speaks to this?
I cannot imagine that the legislature envisioned this situation.
Yeah.
That exception that proves the rule.
Right.
However, the statute does say explicitly that high-performing charter schools are authorized of their own volition to increase their enrollment and to expand their grade levels.
So if we are to deny this, what?
I'm not sure that it's going to be brought to you as an action item.
Okay.
This is something where the statute says that the school is authorized to do it. They notify us that they do it. The school's going to succeed or it's going to fail, one or the other. But I don't know that there's going to be an item brought to you to request authority to do this. The statute gives the school that authority.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. That's helpful. Just to echo some of what my colleagues have said, the one in the expansion where they have the same teacher teaching science and English is a very interesting combo to me. Thinking back to my middle and high school science teachers and my middle and high school English teachers, they were very, very different people and skill sets that I think I've yet to meet a science teacher that would also want to teach English, or an English teacher that would also want to teach science. But I'm sure we would love to find those individuals here in Polk County Public Schools if they do exist. But it concerns me a little bit how many preps for all of those organizations.
The high school teachers currently have 7 and 8 preps.
For each of the additional grade levels in addition. And going from, and they have doubled their enrollment since last year. However, I am very concerned that the additional is not sustainable when you look at, even if they were to double again, they would only be in the mid 60s to 70s. So creating your budget based on more than quadrupling your current enrollment is concerning. Are there any actions that we can take to alert the State Board of Education that we're concerned about this, or anything that we should be doing as a board to?
If and when they reach a situation which is classified as financial urgency, the district will notify the state at that time and issue that declaration. But right now, they're solvent.
And what is defined as financial urgency? The first month that they go into a...
So they have to be in the negative for 3 consecutive months.
3 consecutive months.
Correct. Or break the law, material law, or not pay wages and retirement and those components.
But I will say that I think this is an issue that proactively we should start addressing. To knowingly have the information we have, to ultimately allow someone to expand, potentially fail, and have to revert all those students and disrupt their learning process and revert them back to other schools, creates a significant problem. And let's be clear, the status of their high-performing status is based off just a small portion of their enrollment. It's based off 16 or 18 children. Well, quite frankly, we could qualify every single school in Polk County Public Schools as high-performing if we only had to do it using that type of increment measure. So I think the financial implications here are significant enough, and as Mr. Bridges pointed out, this unique situation was not anticipated by the State Board of Education or the legislature, and the statute is clear. But it does restrict expansion so long as there's capacity. And I think when we start talking about capacity and their financial status, I think this is a conversation that I should proactively bring to the commissioner and to the State Board of Education and say, we are opposed to this. Where do you stand on this? Does it have to go to the Charter Commission? Does it have to go to an appeal to the State Board of Education? But at least then we're on record of saying we're trying to do the right thing to ensure that this school can continue to function in its current state, because expansion could absolutely tank the entirety of this program and ultimately result in this school closing. They have no management company any longer. They withdrew. And the only reason they have a positive fund balance at this time was the previous management company agreed to waive all of the outstanding debts and fees that they were owed, which were significant. Again, the only reason they have a positive fund balance is because they got a recent disbursement from us. Otherwise, they would be operating at a deficit. So again, this is not a criticism of the school. Their enrollment and their staffing and their costs, we all know because we deal with this all the time, is a reality that they have to deal with. But to simply say we're going to expand under the assumption that students will show up and add 4 additional positions to your budget line item, in my mind, doesn't make much sense unless there's a guarantee that those students are enrolled. So I don't see the benefit of this program moving forward in its current state. I think, and I'm on the record as saying what I think they need to focus on at this time, but I just want to reassure the board that I believe that my position as a superintendent would be now to proactively address this with the state to see what, if any, resolution there is.
Thank you. And I think this is my last question, but just to confirm, they're wanting to add 6 through 8 and 11 and 12 all in the 24-25 school year?
No, so next year they will only want to add the middle school, and then the 11th grade the following year, and then have that high school create that rolling pattern for them. And there will be a contract modification at the March board meeting for a formal
formality because it is a change to their current contract. So we do have to have that modification signed.
Okay. So that answer created two more questions in my mind. I apologize. So if we were to vote that down, is that just have
Yes, I think
symbolism
the
more than
superintendent's got the answer. This is a matter that needs to be addressed politically rather than legally, because the law simply did not contemplate this situation. If you allow it to proceed, it's just going to be a question of, that's going to be a situation in which the school is going to be allowed to succeed or fail, and without trying to press the issue up front. So it's a very narrow path for them.
Thank you. And then the other question I had, so if they're not adding 11th grade this year, how many 10th graders does that mean that they would be losing? Do you?
I don't have that number, but I can pull it up.
I was just curious how many, in my mind, I was thinking some would be rolling up and they would retain all of their students.
So
but-
this year's 10th graders would roll back to their zone school, or if they applied for the collegiate or wherever they may choose to attend, the 9th graders would roll. So their current 9th graders would potentially be their first graduating class if they were to continue to add grades 11 and 12 over the progression.
Thank you.
Dr. Allen?
Yeah, so that brings questions as well. So in essence, the vote then would have no bearing, whether they can move forward on.
This is an interesting statute.
Yep.
It simply says they have the authority to do it. If the school board were to vote it down, I suspect that's something that they would have a right to administrative procedure or to due process with the hearing before DOA. Nobody's ever seen this question before.
Okay.
So, like I said, if it's something that can be resolved politically, that's probably a more apt approach to take than to try to do it legally.
Sure. And at this point, they've been in accordance to the state statute, right? So they notified us before March 1st, correct? So, and then in that statute, it also notes that they're only required to submit a quarterly, right, as you noted, in 3 months in regards to their financials. So the report that we have currently that we're basing our opinions on, is that from the past 3 months, or is it just, can you give me like the timeline in regards to the way that their budgetaries would be working? So
Yes, so the information I shared at the January was their December quarterly, was their second quarter report where they were in the positive of just over $2,000. I did ask them for their monthly January financials, unaudited financials, just so we could get a closer picture of what's going on. And that is what they graciously provided. So the information that I shared with their current fund balance is based on the January financials only.
Okay. So basically, the increase from 2,000 to approximately 30,000 within the 1 month period. Is that what you were saying?
Yes, due to the ESSER. ESSER is a reimbursement.
Gotcha.
So the school has to submit the documentation and the receipts and the justification, and then they get the refund based on those needs.
Yep. So when we go to make a decision in our next board meeting, which would be March, end of March, right? We're making a decision based off of only a 1 month period change, in essence, of financials rather than a quarterly assumption. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
The next quarterly report is not due until the end of April, so of course it will be after our board meeting.
Yep.
Well, that's not correct, actually. You received the quarterly report in December that said they had a $2,000 fund balance. We then went back with concerns based off our prior conversation and asked for an update. It's not a quarterly report, but there's no additional revenue coming into them outside of what we've reimbursed them for. So their current fund balance at $29,000 really does reflect the next quarterly budget report. We can ask for another one, but if anybody here is operating on the assumption that their budget's going to keep climbing, that's inaccurate, completely inaccurate. In fact, it will decline by the end of the quarter because of the lack of additional revenue. So it's just like paying your bills. As soon as you get your paycheck, your checking account looks great. Pay all your bills, now you're waiting for your next paycheck. So I mean, it's an oversimplified approach, but I don't want it misrepresented here that we're basing it off of a 1 month financial analysis. That's not accurate. The first analysis that was provided to the board showed in December, which was their quarterly budget report, showed a balance of $2,000. We had questions and concerns. We asked for an update. As Candy said, they're not required to provide it. They did. And it showed that they had a fund balance of $29,000. So we can ask for we don't have to ask. We will get the next quarterly report. And it's going to be quite timely, quite frankly, by the time we get it around to our next meeting in March. So we can definitely ask for that. We can ask for a status update on their financials.
Yeah, that'd be appreciated. I guess my question then too, is there stipulation, Mr. Bridges, on what percentage they need to have in a fund balance, the charter school, right? For us, we have to have 3.5%.
Correct, there is no limit.
There's nothing in the statute to that
In
effect.
statute regarding that. Interesting. Okay.
They are required to be solvent. But yeah, the statute, I think, contemplates allowing a school to succeed or fail on its own keel. But as the superintendent has pointed out, the financial situation there is dire. And if you allow it to proceed and fail on their own, which is not to assume that they would, but if that happened, they're digging a hole that would be bigger. The debt that they would be walking away from would grow and grow and grow.
So Superintendent, are you asking from us today, for a consensus standpoint, for you to address this at the state level, or is this something that you would be moving forward to address at the state?
No, sir, I will address it at the state level. I don't believe I need board action on this item because really we're seeking clarification and basically expressing our concerns. I think that while there is no specified percentage threshold for them to have as far as reserve, I think that when you start, when the plan clearly delineates that we're going to add additional staff and your current fund balance in no way could adequately support that staff model, I think it raises valid questions. And rather than go down the road of creating a financial deficit for an organization that ultimately could lead to their failure, why not? And I think part of this conversation is going to be, I believe myself, Ms. Amato need to sit down with the school because, as Ms. Wyatt pointed out, it would make more sense to roll their 10th graders up into 11th and 12th grade and create that process and then create the demand for middle school. But I'd like to have further conversation with the organization because it's not punitive, right? This is not a punitive, it's just a conversation about the fact that their financial status right now it's alarming. It's not just concerning, it's alarming. So.
Thank you, Superintendent. That's all I have, Ms. Amato. Thank you.
The next item is also Ms. Amato's. This is our RCMA Mulberry Community Academy, School of Hope.
So this is simple. It's just a change of address. When they moved their front door, which means you have a whole new address, which means we need a contract modification to reflect the new address for USPS and 911 emergencies. So it's a contract modification. You will vote on it in March for a quick signature, but it's all the other elements are the same in their contract.
I see no questions or comments regarding the address change request. Thank you, Ms. Amato. Board members, we'll get through the next item, safety and security, and I'm really saying this more so for the IT team behind the wall so that they can prepare. But following this item, we'll take a short recess. But the next item before you is the Safety and Security of School Buildings Award. We have Andy Baldwin here. I don't know if Dawn Robertson is also here. Board members, you will note, because I'm sure the question always comes up, you see the funds there. Happy to provide, and I wish I'll wait to make that comment until Mr. Bridges returns because I want to make sure, but I don't know that we publicly disclose where all of those dollars are being spent as a matter of ensuring that we keep our safety protocols private. So I don't believe, that's one of the reasons I just wanted to explain to you and to others why you don't see a bulleted line item budget there, because that's addressed with you in closed session traditionally. Mr. Baldwin.
Thank you, Mr. Hyde. Good afternoon, everyone. This item is for a approximately $1.5 million grant award from the state of Florida. So these are state funds, not federal funds. The funds are intended for capital improvement projects at our school buildings, and that's pretty much it. As Mr. Hyde mentioned, we don't include a lot of details on the public notice just because of security concerns. This item is your notification, and then it is anticipated that in March it will be a consent item agenda for your approval.
There are are no questions or comments, Mr. Ball. Being a closed session item, really, by and large, I can provide some clarity, right? So these are dollars that we typically spend on security enhancements. These might, as everyone knows, we have security cameras on our campuses. Some of these dollars are allocated because they're on a refresh cycle where we might replace or add cameras to systems. Some of these, as you know, we all have fobs on our ID badges, so there's some enhancements there. Outside of that, I'll leave the rest confidential, but I just want to provide, for public records, some examples of where these dollars can be spent, but all of them require board approval, as you all know. So, and with that, Mr. Chair, I would ask if you like, we can take a 15-minute recess. It's currently 1:40, so we can come back at 1:55, sir.
Great. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to call this meeting back to order, and I'm glad y'all are here with us as well. And I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Hyde to finish off leading our work session today.
Sir, Mr. Chair, members of the board, at this time, the next three items really belong to Joshua McLemore as well as Mr. Harry Fix. So these are all related to capital improvements and/or operations and construction. So the first item is a capital planning part 2 residential growth concurrency development. As you recall, they had an interest in ensuring that they bring regular presentations before the board to help explain how all this works. And so we are now at our second presentation. Josh, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Mr. Chair, members of the board, again, it's a pleasure to be before you this afternoon again in what is, again, part 2 of our 4-part capital improvement project series. Again, the purposes of these series are to really provide you not necessarily a comprehensive deep dive into each aspect that really comprises our overall capital improvement projects, but more of an overview. And obviously, if you have any more questions or concerns, staff is available, and we can really go to the nth degree to answer any questions you may have. So, as you recall, our Part 1 series talked about demography, pretty much student growth and enrollment projections. As a part of enrollment projections, those kids have to live somewhere, which now leads into our next topic here of growth management and concurrency management. So before I get into it, and some of you may be, I can't recall because I've had to give this presentation to a lot of city councils in the county. Some of you may be familiar with some of these slides, but it's a good review and a refresher anyway as to how we manage concurrency and growth management as a school district. So before we go too deep into this subject here, I need to stop and at least provide you an a broad sense of, well, what is concurrency? Concurrency in its broadest sense is pretty much support of infrastructure. Infrastructure that all communities need in order to survive. Common aspects of concurrency include water, your utility systems, not necessarily electric, but your potable water, your wastewater, your roads. How are you going to be able to get from point A to point B? Parks, libraries, first responders, and schools. When is concurrency required? Well, any new growth is required that new growth, that there is sufficient capacity or concurrency or support available in either, your utility systems or roadway networks to support that new community. So one new community doesn't necessarily cause the entire system to fail. The intent and purpose of concurrence is, again, adequate levels of service. And level of service is pretty much a qualitative measure saying, how do we assess the quality of service that we expect from our first responders? That can take in the form of response times, number of sheriffs that we have on staff, the response times for EMS and fire rescue. Roadways, how long is it going to take me from travel from point A to point B? Schools, what is our enrollment size? What are our classroom sizes looking like? Again, it's a qualitative measure that is agreed upon and established collectively. So I mentioned some of those aspects of concurrency that they do need to be in place. However, current state statute only requires 4 specific areas that there are adequate levels of capacity or service, and those being sanitary sewer, potable water, drainage, and solid waste. And pursuant to Florida statute 163.3180. The optional facilities or optional components that local governments can voluntarily enact and impose or enforce include transportation in schools. Polk County does just that. Through interlocal agreements or resolutions, they have collectively agreed that we are going to incorporate those aspects of concurrency to make sure there is adequate support to continue to support these new developments. Now, to bring it more home to us, school concurrency. So briefly, I'll give you a quick rundown of regulatory history with school concurrency because you have to understand where we came from to where we are to have a true appreciation of it. Some statutory requirements that we have to operate within. And then we'll start breaking in a little bit more in depth into what we call our interlocal agreement, which is pretty much our resolution that we as a school district, the county, and 15 municipalities in Polk County all agreed upon of, hey, this is how we are going to manage and grow our schools to support new communities and growth. And lastly, we'll talk a real-world application, and I'm excited to unveil some of our new technologies that we're bringing online to help paint a overall comprehensive picture. So we are sharing the information that we collect as a district with not just the county, but every city and the county and even the adjacent counties, that they can actually see how fast we are growing. So school concurrency. In 1998, the Florida statute recognized the importance of, hey, school concurrency is a vital component to support new growth for new communities. In 1998, they made it an optional component for infrastructure. Fast forward to 2005, the state then mandated it is now a requirement. It's no longer optional. Come 2011, the state then made it optional once again. However, they did allow that caveat of local jurisdictions did still have or retain the authority that they could enter into interlocal agreements to keep school concurrency or transportation concurrency. The last big change for concurrency as it relates to school concurrency was in 2022, where there were some slight changes when it comes to mitigation agreements. Pretty much meaning what avenues did new developments have to pursue when there was not sufficient capacity at a school to support their new development. Some statutory requirements that all really bind our interlocal agreement that we have to fall in line with pretty much revolve around the Early Learning Chapter 20 Education Code of Florida statute. And really two main key areas. Florida Statutes 1011, which talks about planning and budgeting for new schools, and then 1013, specifically how we design and build and what our schools actually are comprised of. Talking about adequate levels of service for school concurrency. Again, that level of service is that qualitative assessment or measure that we decide, hey, we as a community or as a governing body decide we expect this kind of level of service, and this is our goal. Anything less would be considered a detriment or a degradation of service. And through our interlocal agreement that we have active, that's where we establish our level of service. And that our level of service meaning is that we will use 100% of all of our available seats at our schools. Our interlocal agreement is then adopted and drives our 5-year capital improvement plan, or sometimes referred to as capital improvement elements. In terms of how we then communicate that with our governing partners, the counties and cities, that our 5-year capital plan then is also recognized and acknowledged from from the county and the cities, and that's important because whenever they start planning their own 5-year capital plans, where are they extending their water lines? What roadway improvements are they making? And what areas can we, again, work collaboratively to either site a new school or look at new potential school sites? Again, if the county or local city is going to invest the taxpayer dollars in improving it, certain aspects of it, well then let's go ahead and try to work together to identify maybe a school site. And lastly, assured construction. Assured construction refers to our 5-year capital plan. Any new schools or additions that we plan on, that the district plans on undertaking over the next 3 years, if it's an additional capacity at a school, we are required to go ahead and count those available seats in terms of utilization rates. So if, for instance, Southwest Middle School, they just recently underwent a modernization and added capacity. So for the last 3 years, even though it wasn't planned to actually occur until 2023, 2024, we have already had to go ahead and start accounting for that future addition of capacity whenever we are reviewing applications for new subdivisions or new developments. So the interlocal agreement officially is entitled the Public School Facility the Interlocal Agreement for Public School Facility Planning. Some referred to as the Interlocal Agreement, some either shortened it the acronym of ILA. Again, this is our document that the school district recognized the importance of school planning, and we were able to work collaboratively with the county and 15 municipalities of saying, no, we need to keep school concurrency as an element to ensure that our counties have sufficient, or our schools have sufficient room to support all this new growth that we're going to continue to experience. And again, talking about defining capacity and school concurrency, and we'll dive a little bit deeper into each of these subcategories of adjacency, how long our school concurrency letters are valid for, and we'll go a little bit more in depth with mitigations a little bit later on.
And Mr. McLemore, just for the board, for clarification as well, or for additional information, so post-COVID, we began meeting with the county again. We had regular meetings with them. I believe they were intended to happen annually, but I believe following our last meeting, everyone found the information to be truly beneficial, and they saw the need for it to start to ramp up again. But at this point, we've landed on every 2 or 3 years for these conversations. I believe we're in the planning phases now for the next meeting, so this will be the second one during my tenure here. But it's a great opportunity for us to talk with the county and with others about the growth and our needs, and make sure that we're in alignment, and that, because there are times where we may have heard of something that may be coming, and then we can reach out and get confirmation, or we can hear from the county about some of their plans for roadways, renovations, expansions, which then allows us to prepare for that future potential growth as well. So I wanted to link that to this, because it is an indirect process that supports this. This is also in the ILA. The board will recall that this is where site selection committee takes place. We do have meetings on this currently scheduled for site selection to make sure that any site that we're looking at for potential school construction or facilities construction meets with the ILA. So, Mr. McLemore.
So again, going back to level of service, again, anything I present to the board or anyone, I always like to try to show exactly where am I taking it out of our regulations or adoptions. And again, this comes specifically out of Section 4B of our interlocal agreement, where it says we will use 100% of the capacity available as determined by the Florida Inventory of Schoolhouses. FISH. I can't make these acronyms up. But it pretty much is saying, even the 100% FISH capacity includes the portables that are on a campus. So again, as the enrollment figures or the enrollments of schools changes from year to year based off the number of portables, that utilization number changes, and it fluctuates from year to year, again, based off of enrollment. And again, just to highlight. So in terms of utilization, our utilization, we base it off of our fall FTE or survey number 2. Those who are familiar with our lovely utilization chart here, again, that's where we derive this information. We're looking at our 100% FISH capacity, and we're getting our fall student enrollment count. We're using that fall count because we believe it to be the best true estimate of when families are coming in, because Polk County does experience a lot of migratory families that are coming in and out. And typically in the fall, that's when we start experiencing a peak enrollment at our schools. So again, that's our justification of, hey, this is our metric and our base that we're going to use when we are reviewing, hey, what's the current enrollment at this school? I've got a new subdivision I'm reviewing. Is there going to be adequate room to support this community over the next 5-10 years as the new subdivision builds out? And again, we update this utilization chart every year. Again, school capacity, again, goes off of that Florida Inventory of Schoolhouses. And again, it ties into another regulation that we have to adhere to, which is called the state requirements for educational facilities. It pretty much says, in terms of how they calculate capacity, certain types of rooms carry what they consider to be capacity. So many classrooms, you can have so many students in a classroom, and overall, that's how we generate where we end up on a total capacity, or what all room a school can support in terms of students. Concurrency. The facilities planning department, when we are reviewing new subdivisions and new growth, we issue what we call determination letters. And there are 2 types. Non-binding, which is pretty much a quick snapshot in time of, hey, this is where your subdivision is. These are the schools that you were zoned for. These are the adjacent schools that are also located next to the subdivision. And these are their current enrollment figures. With a non-binding letter, we're not reserving anything. It's just giving that developer a quick snapshot in time as a part of their due diligence and their homework as they are getting their application for the new subdivision to take before either the county or a city council meeting. Once a development feels like they are ready to officially formally present their proposal to the city or a county, that's when we require them to come in for what we call the binding letter. This is where we start reserving capacity for these new subdivisions and how they are, what their impact will be on either the zone school or an adjacent school. So again, making sure that we are not overloading schools as these subdivisions get built out. And again, how we are operating out of concurrency, that's based out of straight out of our interlocal agreement and the county's adopted impact fee ordinance study. And the reference to the impact fee ordinance study is vital because that's where we get our student generation rate. And what I mean by student generation rate is through this study with the county that we work collectively with, in which the county is undergoing right now, impact fee ordinances have to be reviewed and updated every 5 years. What we get from that is based off of a single-family detached home, how many students on average come from a single-family detached home? How many students, either elementary, middle, or high, can be attributed to an apartment complex? Impact fee studies are backwards looking. They are not necessarily forward projecting. They can only base their decisions off of accurate or real-time data, not necessarily projections. So the student generation rates of a new subdivision look over what the average has actually occurred over the last 5 years. Adjacency. So adjacency is the concept of where if there's not sufficient room at the zone school, the state requires us then to look out what are the adjacent schools, what is their capacity. Again, we're required by state to have to run these numbers and consider their available capacity to support this new subdivision. Once we do that, we then run our same calculations. If there's not room at the zone school, well, is there room at the adjacent school? What does their 5-year capacity look like? Again, is there sufficient capacity to support this new development? As an example of adjacency, what I'm specifically meaning, so if my zone school is Westwood Middle School, my adjacent schools would be Denison, McLaughlin, Bartow, Crystal Lake, and Jerry Stambaugh. It wouldn't include Boone Middle, again, because adjacency has to be physically contiguous with the zone middle school. Assured construction, again, concept I've already alluded to earlier. Again, what new construction or addition projects do we have planned over the next 3 years? And we have to go ahead and start counting that additional capacity in terms of utilization or room at a campus. Before I go too much further into our real-world example, are there any questions? I know that's a lot of urban growth theory and planning going on here, but before I get too much further into our actual real-world example, are there any questions?
Dr. Allen.
Thank you, Superintendent. Appreciate the information, and I think I was curious on the adjusted multipliers for the Polk School students per dwelling unit. I'm not sure, how often do they change that that measurement, and you might get to it when you unravel the real-world example in a sense here, but the only one that I have number-wise is it's like 0.194 per single-family unit, and then 0.122 per multifamily unit. I don't know if that's the most accurate number.
And again, those are our student generation rates that come out of that impact fee study. And again, we're using information from 2019, which is going to get revised which is actually what they're doing right now. They're conducting analysis. The school district, we've been working hand in hand with the contracted vendor that the county has awarded their contract with. We're sharing our information in terms of what our enrollment data trends have looked like over the last 5 years, what our cost of construction has been over the last 5 years. Again, for them to help reevaluate what does that multiplier number truly reflect.
Okay.
So hopefully that answers. So in terms of a real-world example, some of the board members may have heard of a subdivision called Creek Ranch Development. This development was located north of Hatchinaha Road.
Sorry. I know. I just want to make sure, were you good? Yeah, I'm good. Okay, I apologize. There were some tech issues where I actually inadvertently changed the presentations, and I wanted to make sure that they returned the functionality back to where it should be. I apologize. Ms. Fields?
I was wondering about that, Superintendent Hyde. Can you tell me what the site selection committee looks like? Who serves on that committee?
So the site selection committee is comprised of the county, local municipality if the site is within the city limits, school district staff, and that body is comprised, again, depending on where the sites are located, will really dictate how big that selection committee is. But again, it's comprised of your district staff. That's your facilities planning, construction, and your facilities operations. If it's with an unincorporated Polk County, that's their land development division, that's their director. The Central Florida Regional Planning Council, they also provide technical opinions and input. And through that site selection committee, what they do is that they pretty much review all proposed sites. They rank them. They rank them depending on how many sites you're looking at. Typically, these are new sites that haven't been acquired yet. And what they're really doing is okay, based off of where these sites are located and based off of what our 5-year capital plan is, which sites could we best support or would prefer to support? Because we either already have on the books plan for utility expansion, roadway improvements, or they already are aware of new subdivisions that are on the horizon. They pretty much they rank them, and again, it's their recommendation. We take that recommendation, and then the results of that would be presented before this board to actually make the final recommendation. That recommendation out of the site selection committee is just that. It's a recommendation. The school board itself has the authority to make the final decision. They can be in alignment with it, or they can make their own assessment of it. But again, it's a mechanism used to ensure that we are working together with local governments to ensure that we are making the best use of available resources.
Thank you.
Mr. Sharpless?
Mr. McLemore?
Yes, sir.
Hello. I just have a quick question about adjacency. When we're looking at issuing letters based on adjacency for capacity. And so I don't see this as big of a deal on the elementary level, but when you get to our high school level, some of our zones are pretty large, right? Serving on the attendance boundary committee under your guidance, I learned quite a bit about our school zoning. And so my question is, do we, other than just the adjacent school zone, do we look at mileage from the proposed location of the development to the adjacent school itself to determine any of this, or is it just simply, is there capacity at that school? Just because the only reason I'm saying that is, and the question I have for you is because sometimes it's not practical to attend. Let me give you an example real quick, and then you can answer the question. Like prior to McLaughlin going 6 through 12, right? High school, if a development was being built in the Winter Haven high school zone, they could get capacity based on frost-proof middle senior high school. And that's realistically, a student's not going to travel from the zone in Winter Haven all the way down to frost-proof on a regular, unless there's some way of a tractor, but that's not what we're talking about here. So I'm just curious, is there like a mileage, or we just simply look at the adjacent zone?
So in the language as the interlocal agreement reads and state statute, there is no language in there that says we follow it based off of mileage. However, when we are reviewing adjacent schools, we are obviously going to look at the closest adjacent school. Now, when we issue these letters, that's not the final determining thing that, no, this entire subdivision has to go to this school. It's more of we are looking at our available capacity on a regional basis. That regional basis being your zone school and the adjacent schools. Because as you're aware, the district has choice and it is a very active component of school planning. So again, just because a subdivision is zoned or is an adjacent zoned school, that doesn't lock them into only having that option. Because again, when we are reviewing student generation rates, again, it's not 100% fact or certainty that all of these students are going to attend that zoned or adjacent school because there are other choices out there. But again, we're looking at capacity on a regional basis, if you will.
Thank you.
Ms. Wyatt.
So I think that is the problem, is that we're using the adjacency as we're issuing those letters, and we're not requiring those developments to go to those schools. I'm not by any means saying that if somebody builds a development in Winter Haven, they should be zoned to frostproof. But the problem that causes is we're saying we have vacancies based on frostproof having vacancies. Well, then when the houses are actually built and there's actually kids in them, they're still zoned to Winter Haven. So now you have a Winter Haven that's way over capacity, with not really any room to grow, because we got a few lakes in Winter Haven that we're kind of locked in where we are. That how do we mitigate that moving forward? Is that something that we could put in the interlocal agreement, that they have to be within so many miles of the adjacent school to be able to get the letter? Because my concern is that we're issuing all of these letters, and I mean, I've had multiple city commissioners come up to me and say, you wrote us the letter. Like, we don't have any, if you would stop writing us the letter, then we would have some bearing to say, we can't put a school because there's not seats here. But as long as we keep writing letters, they don't have any reason to say they can't accept them because we don't have seats for those students.
The answer to that is complex, and one that is, not to take a word out of Mr. Bridges' dictionary or lexicon, is fraught with peril. Because once you open the interlocal agreement, trying to get 15 cities in the county to agree on the final language of it is going to be a challenge in and of itself. Now add the component of what state statute requires of us, and it's that state statute that requires us to look at adjacency. Mm-hmm. And that's really the challenge here.
Have we even explored that option of trying to get everybody in the same room? Because I do feel like, hearing from many municipalities, there is interest to reopen the conversation that has not been opened since 2008, which was a very different time in our housing market.
I will share that when we hold quarterly planners meetings with all of the planners within the cities and the county. And again, in having informal conversations, I mean, when this ILA was adopted, 2013, 2014, there have been numerous statutory changes that have occurred since then. Some changes that pretty much invalidate some of the requirements of the ILA. Some city staff have voiced a willingness to, hey, okay, it's probably time for us to relook it, because the cities themselves have also had to adjust their development codes and zoning codes to reflect new state statutes. So I think that's about where I can leave you with right now, but at least I have informally heard support of some, at least at the county and some of the cities, that they would be willing to open this up into at least the possibility of updating it.
I think it's worth adding to our agenda with the county to begin this dialogue, because it's over 10 years old at this point. And to your point, if several statutes have changed, that raises the question of, are we continuing to operate under the ILA as it's written, or are we using the new statutes to say the ILA is no longer really the driver, and we're ignoring what's in the ILA, which creates additional problems because people are reading the ILA assuming that those are the rules. So it's definitely, if at a minimum, it's due for revision and updating. So we can definitely add it to the agenda for that upcoming meeting.
Is that, sorry, with us in the county or with the?
With us in the county, to start it there and then reach out to municipalities to schedule a subsequent follow-up meeting. To Josh's point, they have quarterly meetings, but I think there's other existing business they address there. This needs to be a specific meeting just held to discuss these issues, but we need some prep time to make sure everybody's bringing the right information to the meeting to ensure that it's productive, and we're not saying, well, we gotta go back and check. No, let's do all our research before we arrive and make sure that we can have a productive meeting to update this document, so.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. I think if you are getting pushback from any of the municipalities, there are several of our colleagues as commissioners that are very much in favor of reopening the conversation. So if there's anything we can do to help with that,
Yeah.
I'm only one board member, but I think several of us have heard those murmurings from our peers.
And again, just to clarify, when we do run into instances in which a state statute has changed or is in conflict with the ILA, obviously the state statute supersedes the ILA. So again, our step one is to follow the ILA. However, if there's a state statute that has invalidated a certain portion of it, obviously we follow state statute. So again, it's balancing both roles, but we are following both to the letter. Creek Ranch development, for our real-world example here, is a development that was proposed off in the east side of the Polk County, east 27 north of Hatchinahaw Road, east of Marigold Avenue. This development was approved for over 2,000 single-family homes and around 340 multifamily units. What you see before you, let me back up one. It's pretty much, and we have since revised our applications, but again, this is what we receive in our office. And we've started requiring developments, hey, you are also going to start providing us site plans. Again, this is to ensure that what they are requesting actually matches what their actual plans are calling for. And again, we are having cross communications with the local jurisdictions that are reviewing these same cases. Because if you're asking for 2,000, or in this instance, 2,370 units, I'm checking with my partners in the county and the cities that they are actually reviewing the exact same count. So going back to the chairman's question regarding student generation rates, again, based off the unit type, we then take the total unit count, multiply it based off the student generation rates, and again, for this kind of a subdivision, we're looking at a potential impact of that this subdivision would produce almost 500 elementary students, 193 middle, and 316 high school age students. At this stage, the developer, they were just seeking a non-binding letter. So again, we were providing them a snapshot in time of what our current enrollment was at the zone and adjacent schools, and if there was in fact any room, if they were seeking binding concurrency at the time, was there actually any room to support this new development? So let's say they were seeking binding concurrency. They want to go ahead and start locking in their entitlements. And this, just for example, these are the letters that we issue to the developers, and that we also CC the county and or cities. But say, for instance, there was no room. Well, what avenues does the developer have? Well, they have several. One that we always advise them is, well, you can wait and see if capacity changes, or you wait for another year and see if there is perhaps an addition that is going to be occurring within that third year as we move closer to it that might adjust the capacity of the region. Most developers are not inclined to wait. They will continue to push forward. And state statute allows them to. They have several avenues in which they can propose to the school district binding mitigation agreements. One being the donation or construction or funding of school facilities, pretty much paying for the cost of student stations. And that cost of student station are figures that we get from the Department of Education. And again, they do increase over time and they try to account for inflation, but the figure that we use, that they have published, that we use for cost of student station, in hindsight may only be 60% of what the true cost of a student station is. However, state statute says you can only consider certain factors when considering the true cost of a student station. It's an unfortunate fact, but it is the world that we have to operate within when we're looking at a cost of student station. Other avenues that a development could seek would be the creation of a mitigation banking system based on construction, or a contribution of land, donating a school site, provision of additional school student stations through the donation of a building. Say a developer somehow has a building on their books. But that building has to meet DOE SRF standards, meaning it has to be able to function as a school. That is not very common. You're going to find a building that has been designed and built to meet those same kind of stringent building code requirements. Provision of additional school student stations through the renovation of existing buildings. Pretty much meaning they're going to fund the cost of additional student stations or adding an addition at a school site. Construction of permanent student stations or core capacity provided it meets DOE standards. These bullets are exactly per state statute as they see. A lot of them are redundant, but they keep speaking to the fact of paying for the cost of student station. And lastly, a developer could also seek the construction of a charter school. However, charter school that meets DOE SRF standards. Again, they're pretty much going to they would have to build a school the same way we would have to build a school. So again, not an easy ask or a possibility for a developer to seek, which is why they typically pursue the, hey, we'll just pay for the cost of student stations. Now, after they have navigated the process through getting their concurrency entitlements secured, there is adequate room, or they have entered into a mitigation agreement that this board has agreed to and is binding. What do we do then? We then start adding them to our database of new subdivisions and growth. We have since my tenure here, we are trying to bring us more on the utilizing more advanced and up-to-date technologies, one of those primarily being GIS. GIS is a very vital tool that allows you to visualize where growth is. You can better appreciate it comprehensively over vast areas, but you can also do layered information, school zones, and then you can really start conducting key analysis in terms of projections, growth trends. As we add them into our database, we then use that growth that we're tracking to identify possible projects or additions in our 5-year capital plan. We look in our database. We're seeing a lot of new subdivisions in the northeast part of the Polk County. That's why when you look at the 5-year capital plan, we have new schools planned in the northeast part of the county. Again, we're using the data that we're collecting for the new subdivision growth to help guide our 5-year capital plan. Now for the fun part. For the first time, we'll be showing this before everybody, and this link is public and it is live and is currently being used and shared with our partners, both at the county and the cities, and the general public at large can also view this as well, and they have questions regarding subdivisions. What you're seeing before you is what is called a dashboard. This is a fancy software that a company vendor that's called Esri is pretty much a key leader in GIS softwares that we use to help starting to visualize and map out where all these subdivisions are. From here, again, we are still uploading a lot of our files that we have, still analog and hard copy files, into this system. So when you see that total number of developments with binding concurrency 76, trust me, we have a lot more than that. We have probably closer to 490, but we're still uploading everything that we have into the system, again, to begin sharing this information with our community partners, our local governing agencies. From here, you can get a quick snapshot of how many, what are the projected student counts for all these subdivisions as a whole, how many are looking to be coming from all these subdivisions. Same thing with middle, high school. You can get you also have a running tally of how many approved lots there are. And the dashboard updates every 30 seconds. So as soon as we get applications, you're going to see it in real time. If you want to know specifics regarding one particular development, it's very user-friendly and interactive, in which you can click on certain subdivision titles here and let it be known that technology never works when you're in public forum. Let's see if I have an example on the backside here. What you would see is pretty much a blown-up version of the detailed information you see on your right-hand side here. It pretty much gives you the status of what that development was, the project name, the case number that either the city and or county is following it. Hey, Just give it a little time, it'll work. But it gives you, you can start pinpointing the actual impact that this one subdivision will have. How many students do we project elementary, middle, high? We're also tracking how many certificates of occupancy have already been issued. Again, we're pulling from the property appraiser's office, and we're getting reports from the cities and the county of, hey, they've issued so many COs, and how many COs are remaining. So again, in your detailed panel here, a lot of what I've just referenced, but also what the final build-out is, what we project. And again, that final build-out year, again, is going to change based off the market demand and absorption of available units. So again, it's one of our yearly routine processes where, again, we start relooking all these subdivisions. How fast have you grown over the last year? And then we may need to adjust. Hey, if we said you were building, we projected 30 units a year, you're building at 40, 45 units a year. We need to update our systems because then that, excuse me, updates our student enrollment projections, which drive our 5-year capital plan of where we need to start looking at building new schools or possibly making additions at schools. And if somebody wants to actually view the actual letter that we render, we started linking them here, where you can actually see the letter that was rendered, as well as the actual site plan that we were provided. Again, this is full transparency, and in talking with my colleagues with the other school districts, no other school district in the state has this open transparency. I think Polk County will be the first in providing this kind of open, transparent information. Again, as the school district itself, we're the hub, one of the few areas in which we receive development applications for the entire Polk County, not just a city, not just unincorporated Polk County. So again, the information that we have here is vital to our colleagues in the Board of County Commissioners, our colleagues in the city of Winter Haven, Auburndale, because we see development holistically across the entire county, not necessarily within the smaller confines of our jurisdiction.
So, Mr. McLemore, I'm in the system now just to make the board members aware and other people who may be watching this. It does take a moment to load. There's a lot of data in the background, and it's a single-click platform. So when you, down at the bottom left-hand corner, when you go to that link, and it's provided in the PowerPoint, but we'll make sure you have it as well, it has 2 tabs for binding and non-binding. When you click on those, then the entirety of the county pops up, and then you can, there's a list, or you can actually scroll into the map and click on it, but it's a single click, and then it'll highlight that area and give you the information relative to that. The one question I had, Mr. McLemore, was how lagging are the COs? Because as I click on a lot of these, it's showing that the potential number of students that they're generating, for example, I'm looking at Griffin Lofts, and it says that it should generate 12 elementary school students, 3 middle school, 4 high school. There are 60 approved units, but only 1 CO has been issued and 59 or 60 are remaining. Are they lagging in that data right now? Is that what it is? Or they just haven't built those homes? Because it seems like every example I've gone to shows very little information about the COs being.
We're still uploading all that
You're
data
still
as we
loading that,
speak.
okay.
So again, this is very early, but again, we felt it important that we go ahead and start sharing all the development that we are tracking. So
No,
again,
this is great, because actually, and I don't mean to single out a board member, but Ms. Cunningham sent me an email several months ago from someone in the community asking about adjacency and seats and things like that. So in the future, I haven't been able to provide that. So in the future, we can provide this link and say, you're welcome to research that on your own. And I'm glad to hear that we're out there in front of everybody else. That's good. Okay.
so with that, that concludes my presentation regarding part 2 of our 5-year capital plan.
Ms. Miller.
Thank you. When I came to visit your office and could see the GIS on the large screen, it helped me understand the boundaries. And I've worked with GIS before, but if our board members have not, I would encourage them to go and kind of do that small tutorial of how those systems work. It really layers in those borders of where changes might be made. And I know I'm such a rural district that it was helpful to me to actually go all the way down and look at the roads that would cross. I don't know if your system is just faster, but it seemed to work more quickly in your office. But I appreciate you taking the time to do that.
And again, we are definitely available to help any board member who has questions regarding the system.
Ms. Wyatt.
Thank you. wanted to ask a question about the number of students that it's projected for each of these developments. Is that something that's based on the state gives us that information of how many students we should be projecting?
That's based off the impact fee study and the student generation rates.
Okay.
So if it's 350 single-family unit subdivision, the adopted county impact fee ordinance study says that the student generation rate is as such.
How long ago was that study done?
It was adopted in 2019, and the county is currently in the process right now of revising it. And we are working with their vendor now.
Thank you. I just look at, one of the developments, I actually went and toured, we had a ribbon cutting out a couple weeks ago. Harmony on Lake Eloise has 144 properties, but we're estimating that less than 100 students, all grade levels, will be coming into that development, which the couple students that I saw running around the neighborhood indicate that there may be more than one per household for many of those houses. So that's my only concern, is that we may be underestimating that, especially as we're seeing more and more families move to Polk County than we are. I think for a long time this is where people came to retire, but as we're seeing more and more families move here, if we're adjusting for that, especially I would think in the Northeast where, every time we open up a school, we find that there's not 2.5 kids living in each home anymore. It's 5 or 6 kids living in each home. So.
There are no further questions or comments on that item. Mr. McLemore.
And so the next two items for your consideration, and I did not plan this. This just happened to be how they fell in terms of planning on an agenda item. We actually have two mitigation agreements for your consideration this afternoon. Excuse me. Time flies. The first is a mitigation agreement for Cascades Phase 3. Cascades Phase 3 is located south of I-4, west of 27, north of Sand Hill Road. They are a subdivision that is going to be comprised of 344 single-family units. And at that count, we are anticipating that based off of our impact fee, student generation rates, that development would generate approximately 72 elementary students, 30 middle, and 50 high school age students. If we were to look at how long we think this development will take for it to finally build out, at 40 units to the acre, 40 units per year is our initial trend right now that we're seeing in the Northeast. But again, we reevaluate that growth rate every year. But starting at 40 units per year, we're looking to this development to have a final build out sometime around 2033, 2034, depending on how fast the developer actually preps the site and gets it developed, and then home builders come in afterwards and construct homes. The mitigation agreement, the developer is seeking that they would pay proportionate share mitigation to cover the cost of student stations to the amount of $2,003,976. These funds would be used in the construction of future students' school capacity, and as a part of our 5-year plan, we actually have a school planned a quarter mile to the north. So again, any of these funds would be geared specifically to that project. And how a mitigation agreement works, these funds would be paid directly to the school district, and then we would pretty much write a voucher to the county, and then that voucher would then, the county is required to then credit them any monies that has been paid to the school district to the tune of the $2 million as almost like a credit to their impact fees. So some people like to say, well, this is a way you can get your impact fees earlier. It is, but you do not want to call these impact fees early. This is just a mitigation.
Amounts that are designed to be equivalent to impact fees.
Yes.
But they are not impact fees.
Again, just to be clear. With that, pending any questions on this mitigation agreement?
Dr. Allen?
Yeah, so in this, shared proportionate, the key question is the share of what, right? So, and I think you alluded to what we're targeting within that area. So just for on record as it relates to our capital improvement plan, this shared mitigation agreement is in relation to 22A, is that correct?
It's the new elementary school, because this development is specifically deficient at the elementary level. So our new elementary school that we do have planned on the 5-year plan on the year 5, I believe it's 22A, but yes.
Okay. And so in that, just looking at the mitigation agreement, and this would be Exhibit D, the very last page, page 15, and it has a little correlation to, what you were describing and the data that you're presenting to us in this, the last agenda item. So I noticed that the calculations for student station mitigation as of January 2024, right, in that Exhibit D, it only, if you notice there, it says number of elementary student stations deficient, 167. So I was wondering, in this development, in this shared mitigation as well, is it only targeting elementary? So then the shared mitigation cost is going to that 22A. Would that be proper to say? And so I was curious why we didn't include middle stations and high stations in that exhibit.
So they are only deficient at the elementary level, so they are not required to seek mitigation at the middle or high school levels.
I see. Okay. I think that's the only question I had.
That is the only question out there for you, sir.
Okay. And our next mitigation agreement is going to be, excuse me. And I apologize, I went out of order. I just presented, just for the record, to be clear, that last mitigation agreement was for Cascades Phase 3. This next mitigation agreement is going to be for Crosswinds East Phase 2 mitigation agreement. This development is comprised of approximately 801 single-family homes, and the developer is seeking to pay for the cost of student stations to the tune of $4,642,099. These funds will be used in the construction of future student station capacities at projects that would offset this impact directly. The property is located east of 1792, north of Johnson Avenue, northeast of Haines City High School, and right between Eastside Elementary and Davenport Elementary. And looking at the potential impacts that this development would have on the school district, this subdivision or development is anticipated to generate 167 elementary age students, 70 middle, and 116 high school age students. And again, that's utilizing the impact fee student generation rates. Again, if we were looking at trying to surmise or predict when this development would reach final build out at 40 units per year, final build out would put them sometime in around 2044 to 2045. Pending your questions.
Ms. Cunningham?
Thank you, sir. My question is, knowing how we're growing countywide, I would anticipate that we're going to be continuing to provide these mitigation agreements as we move forward. I'm hoping we see a lot more of them because the growth is upon us. However, having said that, when you look at the current state of homes and people moving in and out, ones that are already built, we're still going to be getting an influx. How do you account for that as well as just new single-family homes, condos, townhouses, and all of that? Because you may have said, when you answered Dr. Allen's question, the only reason we're currently looking at a deficient number of elementary school stations is because we currently, as of the date of whatever date you put on it, we have enough middle and high school. But people are continuing to move here into existing homes that are vacated. So by the time these build out, as you indicated, in the next 4 or 5 years, we may not have those student stations for those kids. So I'm wondering, is there any ability to do not just exactly what we don't have today as of February 2024? Are you able to project that out? Are there any projections in the figures that you've done? Because realistically, you're capturing a very, very small amount of money. That by the time those build out, there will be no middle, and there potentially could be not even high school. I mean, I'm just saying. So to look at what we have today and specifically do a mitigation agreement on today's data, I'm wondering, are you including some type of extrapolation to make it fair and equitable as we move forward so that we can financially afford to build?
So yes, when we do our calculations for concurrency, we do a projection of the next 3 years. And it's based off of our interlocal agreement that describes, hey, this is how we do concurrency projections of how we, again, determine if there's room at our schools. And some of these are called your entitlements or your locked-in school seats for a new development. So again, we do look at 3 years out. And again, we base the 3 years out on the number of students that are coming from the surrounding subdivisions. 3 years because we do 3 years of assured construction. That's how those two tie in together, and that's why we use the 3-year mark.
If I may just add to that, one of the, kind of to get your point, one of the other things we do is we look way far ahead demographically. And we do that by looking at historic trend analysis. And so we look at each school grade by grade to see what's going on in each school, grade by grade, and use that as a beginning point to start projecting to the future. Then we use those projections and we compare them to the state's projections as well. What we find is that the state tends to underproject us at first because we're closer to the data than the state is, right? But and we catch trends, whether they be going down, like during the Great Recession, or up quicker than the state does. However, the state's trend overall from beginning to end is good. We're just better at catching the ups and downs of it than they are. That also plays into this, right? So we're looking at the projection school by school as well. Part of that is the growth that is coming. So it's the art of it becomes the ferreting out, and that's kind of what you're getting to, the ferreting out of those two. We do the best we can, especially given the statutes that we have to work within.
Thank you very much.
There are no further questions, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Next item under budget and staffing is the staff and district updates. Board members, you will note in my update to you, I provided you with information. There are 3 very high interest positions that are now available in Polk County Public Schools. One is before you today with significant changes to the job description. The job description has been revised to reflect following research from multiple other school districts and other areas, as well as gathering feedback from many of our community-based partners as to the role that this individual plays in our school system, moving workforce development, career tech education, and our academy programs forward. Go ahead, Mr. Warren, you can come on down. There are 2 other positions, the Polk Education Foundation's director position. You initially saw a draft here. We pulled it because I want to make sure we get adequate feedback in that one, but that has been significantly revised, again, to reflect the actual work being conducted, and the minimum qualifications were enhanced as well. Because I believe that, somebody should read that job description and really understand what's expected of them. And it was a very narrow description initially, so we've expanded upon that. The third, which is not going to have any job modifications to it, which is an open position right now, is that of the community liaison. That 5th community liaison that was vacated by Steve Warner when he transitioned to his new role. So it is interesting. I'm very curious to see how many applicants we get, but those are 3 high-profile, very high-interest areas. But again, before you today is the Senior Director for Career Technical Adult Education, Multiple Pathways, for your feedback. So go ahead, sir.
That was an excellent summary, and thank you very much.
Well, you're here to answer questions in case there's any.
I can re-summarize, and additionally, he captured all of the elements that you have had an opportunity to review. You did notice that there were extensive revisions to the performance responsibilities in the various areas of fiscal management, program monitoring and development, establishing a culture of excellence, and external relationships. Also, if you read down to the very end of the job description, you'll notice that there have been changes to the education experience as well. That has been revised relative to the Masters in Ed Leadership being preferred, is the way it reads now, so it would open up the pool further. And then there's been a reduction from the 5 years to 3 years for the experience in career tech ed or administrative or classroom or related field experiences. And again, I appreciated the summary on the feedback that went into this to make it very comprehensive and provide the specificity that we need as we go to the next place and hire the new person for this position ultimately. Are there any questions?
Ms. Miller?
Thank you. I just have a quick question. And I know we're not looking at that community liaison position, but there's a lot of overlap in our community reach out, whether it's PEF asking. So I'm hoping that we make in these job descriptions, and this is a superintendent question, I'm looking at Brian Warren because he's HR, that we make it clear on whose responsibility and where that, so we don't have that. We don't want hoarding resources. We want to be, everybody needs to work together, but they might not know where their lanes cross and where they don't cross. So I'm hoping as you revise PEF and as you look at other community liaison positions, they're given clear direction on what their goals are. Because I think it was cloudy for a little while. It was a general, because it was new and we just started it. And I think you'll get a lot of feedback from the people that may be in those positions to help with that so they know what their jobs are. And for our schools to know what they can ask for and who do they ask if they need a business partner or, he loves when I say this, but snacks isn't our 100%, goal for these positions. We need strong partnerships. Right. So how to lay that out in those descriptions, I think would be helpful to whoever applies. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next item.
Wait, Ms. Wyatt, sorry.
Okay. Thank you, Superintendent Hyde. And I concur with everything Ms. Miller said about, and I think that may be more of making sure seeing how they're aligned to our strategic plan, and having a kind of working strategic plan of their own under that to see where each plugs in. As far as the Senior Director of Career Technical Adult and Multiple Pathways, the master's degree in educational leadership or related field preferred was taken off, but it still has master's degree or higher from an accredited institution on there. Is that something that could be preferred or, in lieu of master's, a bachelor's with 10 years of experience or whatever the number is? I just worry that we so often require degrees for things that is it more beneficial to have somebody that has the experience working with our business partners, or is it more important to have somebody that has the experience in a classroom, not in Polk County, working with any of our business partners that we're wanting to get plugged in for workforce? So I just would ask if that could be preferred instead of required.
So the master's degree is there because of the pay grade and some of the duties and responsibilities. However, there are always opportunities to create more flexibility. So if it's the interest of the board to have a master's degree or higher from an accredited institution preferred, or a bachelor's degree with a number of specified years of experience in a specific related field, right? What I would be I just want to be somewhat cautious with is, I ran a business, so I'm good fit for this role. I don't know that that's appropriate. However, I worked for the city in workforce development for the past 7 years, or I have explicit workforce development experience. I think that could offset some of the issue here. There was such specificity to educational focus, and that is not a necessity in this role. What is a necessity in this role is being able to look at all of our comprehensive programs, maintain the alignment, because there are executives and senior directors underneath this role that have the explicit curriculum content knowledge. Really what this person is doing is really leading the initiative on a higher level and making those community relations connections. And the feedback I've gotten consistently as far as where there's a gap between us connecting with the business community is just that. We don't have someone who's out there working the programs and building the relationships and establishing a network. I was just on a conference call with principals yesterday morning And we were talking about expanding some options on their schools for dedicated half-days for internships, things like that, that you're hearing more and more about in education is how do we create flex days. We currently do early release, but if you think about applying the early release in just a traditional school day, rather than it being an early release where everybody just goes home, could you convert the second half of a day to enrichment opportunities, internship opportunities, capstone projects, reteaching and enrichment? So we've been having this conversation with some of our principals, and the number one feedback we've gotten is we've had great business partners with internships, but over time it wanes, and those opportunities to place kids has become diminished. So this person needs to really have more of an eye on that and growing our opportunities. So again, I think the heavy emphasis on school-based leadership is overstated in this one, and I think just adding preferred, unfortunately, skews it for applicants to believe, well, that's what they're looking for. And so we tried to create it as generic as possible to make it as welcoming to as many potential candidates as possible. Same with Polk Education Foundation. We removed some of those similar pieces that you'll see. But if that's the board's interest, that I create some more flexibility, that it could be a master's degree or higher from an accredited educational institution, preferred, or a bachelor's degree and a specified number of years of explicit experience within this area, I'm happy to do so.
I just would hate for us to not even consider an applicant that has the experience but doesn't have a degree. And so many, I don't know that ours does, but so many application systems, if you don't have one of the decrees or things that are required, we don't even get to see the application of somebody who may be the perfect fit, but they didn't have that degree. So that's my concern. But I'm only one board member, so. I am. You have an opinion, Lisa.
Let me see. There are other questions. Let's see. Ms. Fields?
So my question is, what do we require as it relates to their educational background for other senior directors?
Bachelor's degree or higher.
Okay. And then my next question is, if you had to guess the percentage amount of new duties that the person is currently in the position is not doing, would you say it would be a fourth? Is it a half? Because I know there's a lot of responsibilities in fiscal management. And I gather most of those are new?
No, ma'am. What this does is actually captures a lot of the duties and responsibilities that they're currently responsible and tasked for. And over time, in conversations with Mr. Cochran and with others, I wanted to make sure that they're explicitly stated, because again, I don't want somebody new potentially coming into a role and not really understanding the way of work. Right. So I typically use the job description as an opportunity to be very explicit. These are the expectations for you in this role, because you have to have some knowledge and understand that at the end of the day, you're going to have to work with Ridge Technical College and Travis Technical Colleges to develop their annual budgets, and then you have to have you are now in the position as that immediate supervisor to ensure that they are properly adhering to their budgetary constraints and needs. And right now, there are some discrepancies between the campuses that can be addressed. So this is not about adding additional work. It really was about clarifying the existing job duties and responsibilities.
So all of the red lines are not new duties, it's just expounding on, and the same thing for the foundation?
That is correct. That is correct. So, and I think when you look at the amount of underlined new language compared to what was there, it is very explicit based off each one of those categorical areas. And again, we did the research by going out to other school districts and comparing to make sure that it reflects that, but all of the duties and responsibilities in here are concurrent with what's actually being done now.
Thank you.
Sorry. Ms. Miller?
I just have two things. One, we teach our kids that experience matters and business experience matters, so I do agree that we need to be looking at candidates. If we did not have an auto system that threw people out or didn't move applications along, I wouldn't be so focused on that. But working with the city, they have the same thing, and I've been asked to sit on some interviews with them, and sometimes we weren't even getting candidates because there was a word or something that was not being caught in that automated system. So I agree that I wouldn't want to limit who we're looking at based on what we've put here. Also, I'm glad that, being as a board member for Polk Education Foundation for 2 years, I can tell you there's a lot going on there that was not captured. And whoever takes that organization needs to understand the depth of that. It's just not event planning. There is some huge fiscal responsibilities in it. And Susan has been doing this for years. We probably should have looked at this a long time ago because she's doing the work of more than one person. And I think the next person needs to understand what that looks like. So I'm glad that you're taking the time to do that. I've pulled some job descriptions from the past, and I know we're going through and changing them, and I'm glad because a lot of them are very generic in listings. And so while we want to give everybody an opportunity, we don't want to be so generic to just not give a true depiction of what that looks like. But thank you for reviewing those.
Thank you.
Dr. Allen?
Thank you, Superintendent. Ms. Fields' question in regards to the credential for our senior directors was answered. So I would probably hold to that position. I mean, I think we are an educational institution, and I think the accreditation, in a sense, matters, especially when you think about the description here and the amount of work and responsibilities tied to this. I think that's important. And if we say we value education, I think it's important. So just my opinion on that as it relates to the master's degree or higher. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Ms. Cunningham?
Thank you. So you're saying it should stay as is? Yeah, I would have to agree, particularly because you've got more than one group. It has to be fair and equitable. If he's got to have a master's and he's sitting next to me in a planning meeting and then I don't. But, okay, so I agree with Dr. Allen. I would like to leave that job description as it is to keep it equitable across the line. I understand your comments, but we are the Polk County School Board, and we're hiring the best and the brightest to take us to the next level. So I would like that to remain as is. And then my question is, when you get ready to post these 3 high-level positions, can you because they're probably going to be posted at different times, can you let us know? Because we might have some community folks that would be absolutely fabulous in those type of roles that I personally would like to say, hey, go online. They've just posted the position and see if that's something. Because I've had a few kind of ask because it's out there, kind of. And it would be nice to know to be able to forward the information to them.
We can get you the information. The only one that's currently posted is the community liaison position. These two, the PEF one will come to the board at the next meeting for review and approval. This current one obviously is coming to you today for feedback and then ultimately for approval. And then once approved, we will then create the link for the applications, but we'll make sure I'll provide those to you in an email. Yes, ma'am, so you can forward them.
Perfect.
And we'll provide you with a clean copy of the job description once approved, so you can attach that if you're forwarding it to anyone else.
An email. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Certainly.
Great job, by the way. Great job.
There are no further questions or comments on that item. Mr. Werner?
And if it's in order, we'll move to item B under budget and staffing, our work session today, which would be the settlement of the 23-24 ASME contract negotiations and salary agreements. I know that the last time we were together, Mr. Pitts began and reviewed with you in a previous work session, and I also know that he'd worked behind the scenes to follow up with you by way of an emailed spreadsheet that reflected 3-year trends for increases, most notably being the health insurance employer contribution. That was summarized as well at the end of the spreadsheet that he provided. I believe some of the requests that came out of that last time we were together was to summarize the 3-year increase. Those values come up to a number of $1,740 over a 3-year average, which equates to about 17.8% increase in contributions that the employer has provided specifically for the health contribution from 2021 to 23-24. The item that you are reviewing today, that you have seen last time with the feedback provided by Mr. Pitts, is scheduled to come to you as a back-to-back item today from work session to board meeting. I don't want to continue to belabor the executive summary that I anticipate you reviewed previously, but I'm here to answer any questions you may have at this time.
And board members, you received an abbreviated summary from Mr. Pitts as well on Friday that basically gave by department the increment changes that they were receiving. I see no questions, sir. Thank you. Mr. Chair, the only remaining item here, for me, is the donation report. That's an information item, and then it is yours from there, sir, with the board agenda.
Great, thank you, Superintendent. Board members, if you can, just flip over to tonight's meeting, and we'll go through the agenda for tonight. All right, so we'll start from the top. Any questions on sections A through C? All right, and then we'll continue down from D through G. Any comments on that? Okay, moving on now, we're at section H through I. All right, Mr. Sharpless, you're recognized.
I was just wondering if we could have a explanation of what the Science of Reading, Literacy, and Tutoring program is, just so I can understand it. I think that would be important.
We can do that this evening.
Okay, that's all.
All right, very good. And now we're looking at sections J through M. J through M. And Superintendent, I just mentioned if we can maybe address stand by, I'll come back to that actually later. Okay, so we're looking at sections N through O at this point. N through O. All right, and then we're going to move down to section P. This is our action agenda for tonight. Just 2 items. And Ms. Fields, I would assume that you're going to present that letter of support? Okay, great. And then section Q, our public hearing, and I see Ms. Wyatt, you're recognized.
Thank you. And just, we talked in depth about this last meeting, so no need to beat a dead horse, but I will be voting down the attendance boundaries for Garner, and I'll have more comments this evening at the meeting.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Wyatt. Mr. Sharpless, you're recognized.
Yes, policy updates. I want to make the board aware that I'm planning on offering some amendments during our public hearing on policy 2522. And so I was wondering if now would be an appropriate time to discuss those, or if I should wait until the public hearing, either Wes or Superintendent.
You can certainly raise those in the board's consciousness right now, but the lion's share of the conversation will be this evening at the public hearing. Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah, so
Mr. Bridges? Go ahead, Mr. Sharpless.
Sure. So there's 3 amendments that I'm planning on offering. So if we look at policy 2522, if you go to the 3rd page, under B, I would like to see here. I'm going to offer an amendment to, if you look at lines 4 through 9, on where it says appoint a review committee, which must consist of, this is the language I plan on introducing later. Appoint a review committee which shall consist of equal numbers of, and then number 1, parents of students. So basically getting rid of the 1 or more on each one of these, because I feel like that makes it too vague. So it would say, number 1, parents of students who have access to the materials. Number 2, instructional staff members, including certified library media specialists and English language arts teachers. And number 3, lay persons knowledgeable in the area. So it's basically just the First Amendment I plan on proposing is just going to make it to where instead of having it vague, it makes it more concrete on an equal number of those. And I don't know if we want to discuss that or just wait to the discussion.
I'd wait for the
Okay.
discussion this afternoon.
Sure. The Second Amendment that I plan on introducing, if you go down to D, which is on the bottom of that page, I'm going to move to amend by adding a number 5 to that list, and that would be whether the question material describes sexual conduct, because that's specific in the state statutes. And in fact, we referenced that earlier in this policy, but I want to make it clear on D that that's added. And the last one, if we go under G on that same page, I'm going to propose to amend that back from 15 to 30, because when I look at the state and their language and similar things and similar documents, it does have 30 and not 15. And certainly people can feel free to disagree with any of those amendments. I just wanted to make you all aware that's what I plan on presenting later.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sharpless. And Ms. Wyatt, you're recognized.
Thank you. Wes, I think this is probably a question for you, but because it's a public hearing and we have to have multiple readings for those, when there's amendments presented that the public has not previously been made aware of, how does that?
Those policies can be amended at the public hearings, so it can be done.
Okay. Is there a limit of what we can, my concern is the whole point of having 2 readings is to make sure that the public knows that what is being addressed. So to slip it in at the 13th hour, if we're changing things, makes me a little.
Yeah, I think if you're making fundamental changes, certainly I think that would be a wise approach. Here, I think the purpose of a public hearing is to make sure the public knows that it's coming forward, and there will be discussion about it, and they do have the opportunity to have input, and the board could make changes based on that input before adopting it.
But if they don't know to be here to give that input.
Well, it's been noticed, so.
Right, but it's been noticed in its
Right.
current form. So if
Right,
they
but
don't know that the amendment is a potential, then how would they know they need to come and speak against it?
The purpose of a public hearing, of noticing it, is so they know that there will be a conversation about it.
About the topic.
Under the Administrative Procedures Act, there's no purpose in having a public hearing if the board does not have the opportunity to make changes after the public gives input.
Okay.
So, so it is not inappropriate to make changes. Once again, though, if you're going to make a fundamental change, change directions, I think it's absolutely a better form to say, hey, we need to go back and have a rehearing on this. But these are the First Amendment that Mr. Sharpless proposed. Yeah, it just has to do with the composition of the committee. It doesn't affect the equities of the policy. The increasing the number of days to allow for a complainant to appeal actually improves their situation. And let's see, number 3 was.
Adding the number 5.
Yeah, adding number 5. That's a direct statutory lift.
Okay.
So, and we already have it in a different place in the policy.
Okay.
So.
Okay, Ms. Wyatt, anything else?
I think that's all.
All right, thank you. Ms. Fields, you're recognized.
Thank you. I had some of the same questions that Ms. Wyatt had, and no disrespect to Mr. Sharpless, but I think it would have been nice that we had this in advance, and if we would have had it in writing. There's nothing here that implies that it is somewhere in writing. And so I respect your opinion and what you are wanting to do, but I'm not going to support anything without having a very good understanding in writing in front of me.
Okay, Ms. Fields, thank you. Anything else?
If I might, if it's the board's wish, the final hearing on this could be rescheduled for a different day. I would not suggest pulling it from the agenda today, because the public does have notice and you're likely to have some people in attendance. But if you wish to postpone final action and have what amounts to essentially a third reading, there's nothing to keep you from doing that.
Sure. And this was work sessioned properly, correct? Okay, thank you. Ms. Miller, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I agree that it's not good practice. Am I on? Okay, I don't hear me. It's not good practice to do amendments in the middle of a board meeting to a policy without it going to work session. It would have been better to have these at work session, so then the attorneys can be involved and we make sure that we're being compliant in the process. We will, I think, in my opinion, have to move this out now for final, because we'll have to take it back to, I'm assuming, Wes, we'd have to take it back to a work session to discuss.
You certainly could. Once again, though, the public has been noticed. We've already had one public reading. This will be second reading. If there are fundamental changes you wish to make tonight and you wish to kick the adoption off for public hearing at a different date.
I mean, multiple changes are fundamental to a policy that haven't been reviewed by our own staff and/or attorneys.
What I'm saying is, it is conceivable. You have the conversation tonight. You decide what changes you want to make. That's in public. That's the purpose of the public hearing, and then we could schedule it for a second public hearing for adoption. And if you wish to have a work session presentation on that before that, you may certainly do that too.
I think that's only fair to the board and the public to not make decisions without work session involvement. Is there any action by the chair that needs to happen to move this date that you discussed?
No, I think, once again, you'll have a public hearing this evening. And
Right.
at the public hearing, it's the board's desire to make changes and to put it back through the rulemaking process.
Thank you.
For public input. Then you would simply make that, you would not adopt the policy, and it would be brought back to you, scheduled for for first reading at work session, and then followed that by adoption at a public hearing.
Thank you.
Just like we were going to do today.
Yeah, and just from a clarity, my standpoint as a chair, I'll bring the item forward, and you'll have the option to make a motion on that. So I'll look for your guidance on that at this point. We have work sessioned on it. I think the concerns were brought forward at that point. Staff didn't make or take recommendations from our work session. However, we as board members then have the opportunity to bring those forward during our discussion. All right, and Mr. Sharpless, you're recognized.
I certainly respect the will of the board with this item. I just will say that during work session, I did bring up some of these things, and I don't think any of this is substantive change. When you're going from 15 days to 30 days, that's not a substantive change. When you're adding language, on the criteria that's already previously in the policy, I don't really see that as substantive change. Maybe someone could argue that, saying shall instead of must, or saying instead of one or more that they should be equal is a substantive change. I could see that. I don't think any of this changes the intent of the policy. Certainly, these are just things I wanted to clarify and make it more clear in the policy. So again, I have no problem with this being postponed. However, I don't think this is substantive change, just in my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Sharpless. And Ms. Cunningham, you're recognized.
Thank you. And I'm of the opinion, this is the second reading. It's already been through one. So I would like, and I will make the motion, that it stay as is, since it's not substantive, since it's just doing a little bit of clarification. I don't know that it's worth starting over for that. And I think in the future, let me suggest that if someone has those kind of changes, that you either bring them up at the first reading so it can be taken care of before the second. But I feel like we've gone through now all of that, and the people are coming, and if they come and make comments the way it is, or one could contact staff and ask about making those subtle changes if you would. But I personally want to I would like to vote on this just as it is. And that's my comment, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. And Ms. Wyatt, you're recognized.
Thank you. I have one point of clarification just with the process. So if we did not want to adopt it tonight and wanted to push it, would it be a motion to have a third reading? What would the motion be for that?
So, and this could be a point of clarity on Mr. Bridges' part, but from my perspective as a chair, that would be debatable. So if someone made the motion to postpone it, and then if it was seconded, and you can, this would be a point of parliamentary from your standpoint, but if it was seconded, then we would have debate on that from a postponement standpoint, and then we would vote whether we would postpone it or not. If we collectively don't decide to postpone it, then we would then move through the motion to move forward with that. And that would just be a point of clarification from you, Mr. Bridges.
Yeah, I think that's right. First you have the option to have the public hearing and approve the language as it is. You have an option to have the public hearing and have Mr. Sharp's amendments and go ahead and vote on that as amended, whatever the board agrees. Or once again, you can treat that as a change that requires the board to go through rulemaking once more. And we would simply, at that point, you would not vote to approve it. You would vote, there could be a motion to add Mr. Sharp's amendments and to bring it back for rulemaking in accordance with the Administrative Procedures Act.
So if there was a motion to approve it with the amendments and that was voted down, could we still bring it back?
Yes, first off, once again, you can vote it up or down as it is. Mr. Sharpless can make his amendments. If that's not seconded and approved by majority vote, then what comes forward is the original language that has already been heard. So that's a legitimate vote. You can proceed with the language as it is without amendment and vote it up or down. If you amend it, once again, you have two options. You can either go ahead and vote on it, or you can say, this is a sufficient change in an item that is of significant public interest that we would like to make those changes and let the public have the opportunity to comment on them before we vote. And if you do that, I think the motion would be to, well, first off, you would have to vote down the motion on the floor, which is to approve. You would vote that down. And at that point, I think administratively, probably no other further effort of the school board would be required. We would simply go through rulemaking again. You would have voted down the item today, so the motion failed, and that sends staff back to the table, and we would put it on the agenda for first reading.
That was my question.
Yeah, we can do
If the
that.
motion fails, we could still bring it back. Would we have to have multiple readings again, I guess is my.
What I'm hearing from the board is they would prefer that.
Okay, so no, I think, so
No,
if you're.
if you did not approve it tonight,
So if we did not approve it tonight, we could just delay and have a third reading.
legally, I believe you would be well-founded to go straight to a public hearing and not have a work session presentation. I was hearing from board members a desire to have a work session presentation, though.
So my question, if you listen to the whole thing, is if we do not approve it, so if we were to vote it down tonight, would it start over again? Or would we couldn't just bring it back for a third reading if it has failed? If we're bringing back a new policy, then we would have to have two
Tonight
additional
would
hearings.
be, I
If it's
think. that-
delayed, then we could just bring it back for an additional one.
I believe that legally speaking, the meeting tonight is noticed as a public hearing. The public have the opportunity to come, and it could be treated like a reading. And then legally, I believe we could schedule it for a public hearing and go straight to it.
Okay. So the clarification I'm trying to get is if we vote on it tonight, we would then, and it fails, then we would have to start the process over. If we delay it, then we could just have one more hearing.
No, if the motion fails tonight, in other words, if the motion that's on the table is to approve the language as it was originally presented, and that fails, then I think you have both options, and it's a question of form, not of law.
Okay.
You've already had 2 hearings on the existing language. This could be treated like a second hearing, or I'm sorry, like a first reading for the purpose of making the changes. And then it could be brought straight back if the board wanted to do that.
I was
You know,
on the,
and
under the
if you do, what I would go ahead and do is tonight I would ask for authority to advertise that public hearing, go count days and see whether we could do it in March or whether we'd have to do it in April. And we could go ahead and get that done and get it on the schedule. You would not be required to go through the entire process again. You're in the middle of the process. Yes, ma'am.
My second question was for Mr. Sharpless. Can you repeat the amendment looking at section B? What you're looking to change it to from the 1 or more?
Stand by.
Sure. So, I mean, I can read exactly what I would do. I'm not actually making a motion, but I'm going to read what the motion would be. I move to amend the proposed language in paragraph B on page 3. Specifically, I move to delete the proposed language on lines 4 through 9 and substitute therefore the following language. Appoint a review committee which shall consist of equal numbers of, number 1, parents of students who will have access to the materials, 2, instructional staff members, including certified library media specialists and English language arts teachers, and number 3, lay persons knowledgeable in the area. Would you like?
So I'm a little confused because I'm not, B, I'm only seeing sections 1 through 4 on mine.
Correct. Well, 3 is stricken.
Right, but you were saying 4 through 9?
No, lines 4
Lines, okay, I apologize.
of B.
So it's really just changing it, instead of 1 or more, it would just be
equal numbers.
a more general equal numbers, okay.
Because, I mean, I don't want to debate it, so that's the reason.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Miller, you're recognized.
Thank you. I appreciate Wes clarifying this. I don't know that we need to start over, but I also don't think reading something out loud to a board who's never heard it can be voted on. I just don't think that's appropriate for anything. And this is some respectful criticism to our staff. If they thought this was out of compliance with any kind of laws that we have, or if they thought that if they were given input that they didn't respond to by today, this should have happened outside of this work session. It should have happened before this work session. It should have been discussed in the previous work session. If there is, because that's my question now. I need to go talk to staff. What would this look like? These all may be great ideas. How would this play out? But none of that can happen if you're reading some amendment that nobody has a copy of and then expected to vote on it. So I'm not sure where that break happened. And listen, in the past, we've never had somebody change multiple things and then vote right away. We've had time. Now, I don't know that we need to go back to a work session. If we can continue the process and just have a little time to clarify any questions we have, I think that would be appropriate.
I believe you can, and I also would point out that the Sunshine Law strictly prohibits communication. If Mr. Sharpless is proposing this, it can't be provided to school board members outside of a public meeting.
But we had a work session and discussing it, and if any board member, not just Mr. Sharpless, if anybody had a request, there was no response to that. So if he never had a response and nothing was changed, it wasn't time for that discussion. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. And
Mr. Chair, I want to be very clear that just because a comment is made in workshop, that is not a directive to me or to my staff to make changes. That is an opinion. That is, I do not operate under the individual determinations or wishes of singular board members. I operate under the direction of the majority or the entirety of the board. So again, I want to make it very clear, because there's been at least multiple comments made here today about staff not responding. That is completely false and inaccurate. However, I will also state for the record that, because a word was used earlier about the structure of these. The structure of these was done based off of a long-standing practice in Polk County Public Schools as far as who participates. And so if the board wants to make sure that they're equitable numbers, then that's fine. But, and again, I'll take direction from the board, but I want to clarify and defend my staff to a certain extent that no one failed to do anything in this regard. What was stated were personal opinions, not a direction. I was never provided direction by the board saying, Mr. Hyde, we're asking you to go back and revise this policy as follows. That was never done. And if that's the interest of the board in the future, then they need to act that way and direct me and my staff to do such changes. And that's why the conversation earlier today, as an example, came up about job descriptions. If it's not a uniform agreement and decision by the board that a job description be modified further, then I'm not going to modify it independent of the board's direction. So this conversation, I want to be very careful because, again, it's been said multiple times. So I just wanted to clarify that point. So thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. And Ms. Fields, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Allen. I have been around the block for a minute, and I have, to my knowledge, and Ms. Cunningham has been behind me, and maybe she can remember that we've ever had anyone to propose any type of change without submitting something and giving it to us in writing. And I think that's my concern, as I said earlier. And I understand the value of not starting over. I just think that it appears that more communication should have been had, and maybe it was, and maybe it just didn't get filtered. I don't know. But Superintendent Hyde, to me, in no way would I think less of your staff. Because I know that whenever something needs to be taken care of, you are Johnny on the spot as it relates to communicating it to your staff, and your staff the same back to you. I just think that in the future, if we're going to make any changes, be it small or be it large, we need to at least have something for me in writing in front of me so that I can make sure that I'm understanding what I'm going to be voting on. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fields. And Mr. Sharpless, you're recognized.
I want to be clear, this is not a criticism of any staff. I just mentioned things in work session that were my opinion, absolutely, Superintendent Hyde. And since I did mention them in work session as my opinion, I wanted to go ahead and bring them up as forth as an amendment. In other organizations that I've served in governing bodies of, we've made motions, amendments, and we had heard discussion and we voted. So I will say that maybe this is some of my inexperience as a board member. I've only been on the board a little over a year. That it's just common practice in other organizations. So I do not, it's not my intention to cause controversy on that. Just things I've done before. And again, I saw it not as substantive changes, just things I prefer. And but I do hear the board. I do hear your desire to see amendments in written and ahead of time, and I understand that. And so, again, please forgive my inexperience as a school board member on that. It's certainly not something that I'm learning the role as well. So thank you.
I appreciate that perspective there, Mr. Sharpless. And just to add to this, I'm here just as an equal to take direction, and so your as fellow board members will have to direct in regards to what you want. If you want to postpone something, that's going to be your directive to initiate on that, and I will do my best to follow parliamentary procedure under Westbridge's guidance on this. We have work sessioned on that, and I would agree with Mr. Sharpless that we definitely expressed opinions during those work sessions. And I think it would be ill for one of our staff members to just take our one singular opinion and make those changes. So I appreciate that perspective, Superintendent, as well. So here we are after work session and, taking those collective thoughts to now vote on this. So I'll look for direction from you tonight and look forward to seeing how that goes. Ms. Miller, you're recognized.
Have back and forth with staff. We probably need to do a better job of saying what you're expecting when opinions are given, because the staff, what they're giving us is what they've researched, what they've worked on with legal help, with Neola. There's been a lot of education to what they're providing. So if we have we need to make directives to the superintendent if that's what we're expecting. But if our staff is highlighting things they think may not be legal, not legal, but follow the law, they should tell us at the work session time. I just don't, it would be confusing to staff to have multiple conversations in one work session and not know what the directive is. So I'm sure the chair will guide us in more, not the chair, because that would be the superintendent. The superintendent's work sessions, he can guide us in what the directives are and difference to what the opinions are. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. And I mean, I'll add to this, if we need to bring, staff to address this at this point in the meeting, we can do that as well. That's why we have this opportunity during our work session here. As we look at this agenda study, we ask staff other questions on other agenda items. So if we need to, if that's the necessity of the board, you can ask for that. That's why staff is here as well. To add to this as well, I have recommendations to make updates to this as well. And I can bring those forward tonight, or I can bring those forward to you now as well. And at this point, Mr. Bridges, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Administrative Procedures Act is a complicated beast. And especially when you try to line it up with how it intersects with Robert's Rules of Order. If the board would like to have a quick and dirty session on rulemaking in an upcoming work session, I would be delighted to bring that so that we can develop a common understanding of how things would fit on the framework of the Administrative Procedures Act.
Thank you, Mr. Bridges. I see no other comments on that particular item. Superintendent Hyde, I did ask for that Q2 as it relates to the Attendance Boundary Committee recommendation for James E. Stevens. Just wanted to seek clarity on, I'd asked about that development that's at the corner of 540 and Highway 98, as well as the development off of Ernest Boulevard by Bartow Ford. And I was even looking at the ArcGIS data, and it notes the 92 houses that are in that development. But I don't see any numbers or anything like that in the development off of the road that's adjacent to Bartow Ford, where we have the multifamily and the single-family homes going into that development. I just wanted to make sure that those were factored into because already, as noted, and I sent you the email earlier about the capacity of Spessart Holland, if we approve this, is already at 109%. I just wanted to make sure that the capacity of Spessart Holland, if we vote at 109%, that is including all of that development. So I don't know if you want just to have your staff ready for that during our public hearing.
Well, I sent you a response, so I'm happy to address that this evening, but I will have additional staff here in case there are further questions.
Yeah, and I think your response only noted the 92 houses in that development, so I wanted to know clarity on the other development.
Sure.
Thank you. All right. And so now, let's see, we're going to go down to superintendent's report. I assume you have a superintendent's report for us tonight. Mr. Hyde?
Yes, sir.
All right. Mr. Bridges, looks like you have something for us as well.
Yes, I have 2 items.
All right. I don't see Miss Matthews out there, so I don't think we have a report from Miss Matthews. She's out, yep. But I'll just note the most recent audit reports that we've received from her during meeting tonight. And then we'll wrap with our comments and public comments as well. All right, any other questions on the agenda? I don't see anything there. Community liaison or committee updates or your liaison updates? Anybody want to bring anything forward in regards to those? Give you all a moment. All right. Mr. Sharpless, you're recognized.
Since I am the alternate for the FSBA Board of Directors, I do just want to mention that I'm planning in April to go ongoing in April, I plan on attending the School Finance Forum 2.0. So that way I can just learn even more about school finance. I did the first one last year. I just want to completely understand it took me 2 days just to understand the formula. It's pretty intense. And so now diving more in depth in that, I think will be important for me.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Sharpless. And Ms. Wyatt, you're recognized.
For Polk Vision Board of Directors, one of the conversations that came up at our last board meeting was their upcoming behavioral health navigating the digital age conversation they're having. It will be on May 1st at the Center for Public Safety, Polk State campus. They're specifically looking at how technology relates to students and mental health as one of the key topics, which I think was probably of interest to this board. So I wanted to make sure that you all knew that that was coming and had it on your calendars if you wanted to attend. Again, that will be May 1st, and I believe we should be getting invitations and things should be going out soon, but I know it's a crazy time of year, so I want to make sure if it's something you want to attend, you have the date early.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Wyatt. And that looks like that's everybody. So appreciate your engagement and involvement in our community. And at this point, don't forget we do have a discipline hearing coming up, and this meeting is now adjourned.